From Rhythm and Light in Chicago, I'm Steve Ordower, and welcome to Rhythm of Life. Today on the show, I sit down with an actor who has been a fixture on the film and television landscape for decades. You may know him from The Ghostbusters, Miss Congeniality, the HBO series Oz, The Crow, or a slew of other productions. But today, you will get to know him in a very personal way as we explore his long and winding career. So sit back and enjoy this thoughtful, fascinating, inspiring, and at times downright hilarious conversation I had with this American treasure, who is one of the most gracious and thoughtful people I know, and happens to be a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Ernie Hudson. I wanted to just kind of start from the beginning, get a sense of, you grew up in Benton Harbor, Michigan, right?
Yeah, which is right across the lake from Chicago. Born there, raised, went to high school, got married really early. But yeah,
what age?
Early life was Benton Harbor. I got married at 18.
No kidding.
Wow. I got out of high school and joined the Marine Corps. Actually, I joined the Marine Corps 2 months before I got out of high school.
I was going to ask you. I read that you had a short stint in the Marine Corps. Is that right?
Yeah, I joined, and then when I graduated, they shipped me off to San Diego training depot, and I was there for 10 weeks, and was discharged because of asthma, and found myself back in Benton Harbor, which I was so desperate to get away from. And then once I was there, I figured, well, this is my life, so I might as well marry and settle down and make the best of it. So I got married. She got pregnant right away, and so that was what I thought was going to be the rest of my life.
I had no idea. Well, when you were growing up, I think you told me once that you spent quite a bit of time in church. Is that true as a kid?
Yeah, I was my mom died when I was 3 months old.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
And actually, I think it was probably 4 months, but in my mind, it's always been 3 months. I was born in December. I think she died maybe the 1st of April, but so I've been saying 3 months for so long. But so I never really knew her. And my father, I didn't know him because she had gotten pregnant away from the family. And so I was born at home. There was no record of my birth, and
that's strange.
So, So my grandmother was very religious. She belonged to Church of God in Christ in the early days, and so I'm sure as a baby, we went to church, literally 5 out of 7 days we'd be at church, and I remember getting saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost when I was about one of my earliest memories, maybe about 4 years old. I mean, I was tarrying on the altar for the Holy Ghost, and people say, you grew up in the projects in the hood, and I grew up in church. I kind of walked through.
That's
the
what
hood,
you said to me. That's right. That's right. You said that very.
I don't know a lot about
remember that.
What's going on, but my life was mostly in church. It was church, it was school, and it was. That was my world. My grandmother, we were very close. And so, and when I was a little kid, I had no choice. But when I got closer to my teens, I kind of wanted to be there and help her because she had physical difficulties. And so I think I was really doing it more to keep her happy. But
I would imagine that she instilled, and the church environment instilled, a lot of values in you, because you're with the limited time that we've spent together, you occur to me as a very thoughtful and spiritual person. Would you concur with that these values have stuck with you to this day?
Yeah, I think so.
To a degree?
Yeah, no, I think the things that you learn as a kid, I think, as opposed to coming into it as an adult, things were kind of simplified, and my grandmother had a way of explaining things that so that I could sort of conceive and make sense out of. We'd listen to the sermon, and then on the way home, or we would talk about it, and she would kind of break it down and say what this really means is, and in some way that I could kind of grasp. And so the whole sense of the spiritual connection that we all have, that was the belief that that is what unites us, as opposed to anything that's physical or some identity. It's our spiritual identity that makes us one. And that's, I've always, that comes from the teachings in church. And even though, I turned my phone off, but I didn't turn my watch off. I apologize. So
that's a modern day dilemma.
Yeah, it's like the watch is going off. So anyway, church has always been part of my life up until I was probably in the 10th, 11th grade, when I began to question a lot of things that I thought were fundamental, didn't somehow seem fundamental to the pastor, the members. I began to see a little beyond the curtain and question things that my grandmother didn't question. She just said, don't look at that. You just realize God is, he blesses you through people who aren't perfect, but, look past, I couldn't look past that.
Right.
And I think even in choosing the wife that I chose, now that I'm older, I can look at it. I think because my grandmother didn't approve of her, and she was not a part of the church, so no one did. I think that was my way of breaking away. Once I was with her, it's like, okay, my wife, I'm sorry, that's my connection. So that was my way of getting out of the church. And, yeah.
It's interesting how you had this natural curiosity to see behind the curtain, because I know that you started early on writing poems and songs, and you actually were a playwright, writing your own plays. Didn't you found an ensemble for African American artists?
Yeah, I did. Well, me and a couple of other, theater people. I was in Detroit, and I was going to Wayne State University, and Earl D.A. Smith was a professor there, and David Regal, a couple of guys. And so we established this theater, the Actors Ensemble, and we're doing a lot of just sort of, new stuff. We thought interesting stuff, and it was a place where you could write and you could, you could get on stage. And in the African American community, there was a number of theaters. Concept East Theater, which was one of the oldest Black theaters, first established, I think, in Cleveland, and then they had a branch in Detroit. But there were several places where you could go and you could train and you could develop your skill. And in the theater we had, we wanted to give people a chance to see the work, because the established theater, Wayne State, they weren't doing a lot of that stuff, doing classical stuff, but that wasn't kind of where my head was, even though they did do a play of mine, and I was able to do a lot of workshop stuff there, but there was outlets for that kind of creativity that I don't know if it's there now. That's the problem,
What inspired you to get into acting and writing to begin with?
I got married so young. I thought it would be very simple: get a job, take care of your family, buy a house, and how hard can it be? So, but it got complicated real fast.
I used to have those same thoughts.
Boy,
were we naive.
So we, I just, my grandmother, her only wish for me was, or her only ask of me was to graduate from high school, which was, she was born in 1895, which meant if you had a high school diploma, that was like a college degree in her mind. So once I got a high school diploma, I was good to go. But of course, by the time I graduated, that wasn't the case. And so I wanted to get a good job. I wanted her I just wanted to get a good job, something that you can be proud of. And so I did a lot of, I sold, I sold books, I sold Watkins products door to door. I just did a lot of jobs in addition to the job I had, which was a janitor. but I was always looking for something. I was always looking for a place, and I never quite felt at home. We left Benton Harbor to go to Detroit to get into barbering. I was going to go to beauty school, and she was going to go to barber school because women made more money as barbers than men did, and men made more money in hairstyling. So, but that didn't last long. That didn't. She went to barber school.
I'm taking this down, by the way. If I need to transition,
I'm running. So we saw an ad when we were in Benton Harbor. We saw an ad in the paper that said, "And if you go to Alaska, was looking for barbers. And if you go to Alaska, you can make $15,000 a year, which seems like an enormous amount of money." And we thought if we went there, we could live out of one salary, save the other salary, come back like in 5 years, have $60,000, and we'd be, life would be good. I don't know if that adds up to 60, but we're going to have a lot of money. so
it's all relative. So I mean, what sparked your move into acting?
So getting to the acting. So I tried. I got into college I got into college and was there for about a year and a half, and got a job with the Michigan Bell Telephone Company, which was a great job. I finally landed the job that my grandmother was proud of. I had a little green card that I could use, drive had the little bell symbol on the back. I wore a tie to work. I worked in an office. I had a secretary.
Respectable.
I had a real job, and they were paying me. At the time, it seemed like a lot of money. It was about $1,200 a month or something, but that was a lot of money. But I hated it. I hated it. I didn't understand it. I was awful at it. I kept expecting to get fired at any moment once they knew just how bad I was. I mean, it was really awful. And but I felt, I had to. It was almost like that dream that you dream, and then it comes true, and then you go, "Oh my God, it's a nightmare." I didn't know how this was going to work. So I left the job one day. I was driving to work, and I missed a stoplight. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. I missed the stoplight. I wasn't paying attention. And then I missed the next stoplight. And then I thought it was such a nice day. I think I'm going to go to Lansing, which is the state capital in Michigan. I'd never gone before.
Okay.
So I thought I would take the day off and drive to Lansing. And then on the way to Lansing, I thought, my brother's in California. It'd be really cool to see him. So I ended up driving to California, never went back to the job.
Really?
Yeah, I just, and then I was trying. And
so how old were you at this time?
Oh, geez, I don't know, 21, 20. So I came back. I was in L.A., and I couldn't get a job. Everything was going really badly in L.A. And so I was really kind of lost, and I called home, and my wife, and the one thing I'll thank her for the rest of my life, I was saying, it's really hard. She said, well, why don't you, I had gone to, I was in at Wayne State, and I had taken an acting class. And when I took that class, when I walked on stage, I just felt at home. I just felt like this is where I belong. But it was just such a big dream. I mean, you can't, it was like something that would be impossible. But I just felt so right there. And so when I called home from California, and she said, why don't you come back and do that acting thing? And I said, but actors can't make any money at acting. And she said, yeah, but you're broke anyway. You ain't got no money anyhow. So you're not going to lose any money. So why don't you do something that you like? So I came back. And I totally got involved in theater. And from that day, which was in 1966, I think, I've always managed to make a living as an actor. I managed to do little plays. We had some local TV stuff. I've always found a way to generate enough money to manage as an actor. And that's been, 50 years now.
That's fast. Have you told that story to anybody?
I don't think so.
On an interview ever?
No, I usually, what area do you focus on? But yeah, that was,
that's
because
incredible.
When I first discovered theater, my wife and I were in Detroit. We had a fight, and I just had to get out of the house. I mean, I just had to get out of there because
right.
she was
Yeah, I've been there.
I just had to, one of those moments when and so I got in my car and I'm just driving because I don't want to go back home and I'm really upset. And I drove past this little, looked like a storefront with a little marquee, and there were people lined up to get in. And I was curious, so I got out and asked what was going on. They said it was a play. I'd never seen a play. I did some high school stuff, but so I got in line. I went in and I saw this play. Don't remember the name of it. It was about a father whose daughter got pregnant, and he, disowned her. And then in the end, they came together. And I was so blown away. But that was my first kind of introduction. But at that point, the dream was too big. I just could not see how I could ever even ask for something like that. But it was always there. And then I took an acting class and I loved it, but it was still like it's impossible. But after feeling like I failed at every possible job.
Through the years, I keep on calling.
That was when I came back and I committed to acting,
Wow. So, I'm curious though, when you said the first time you were on stage in that class, that you felt right at home. Could you remember like what you were doing? Was it an exercise or what had you feel so at home? Do you
when I'd seen the play that was like in the summer, and then that fall as an elective, I needed an elective, and I took this class, didn't know anything about it. I went in. And it was the first we held class on a stage, and I just knew. The way it just felt, the way it smelled, the way it just was. It was home. It was me. It was, And we performed a play, and the first play I did, I had no lines, and the guy who was playing the lead, he was teasing me because I would do the vocal exercises and he would say, "You don't need to do this, man, because you ain't got no lines." But I was so committed to doing this. And for years, people would comment on this because I played this guy who had been injured in the factory, and he was having dinner with his family, and he wanted to, there was so many issues, and he wanted to speak, but he couldn't speak. And there was a moment in the play when he tried so hard, and but it was I loved it. But I think, I grew up believing that spirit, that greater part of you, that spirit that you're connected with, that is aware of you, that it was personal. And my grandmother would always insist that it was personal. Don't think of it as something outside of you or something different from you. It is a part of you, and it is aware of you. Really aware. And it is there to help you, to guide you if you wanted guidance. But you didn't have to tune in, but it was there. And when there was something you wanted, when you were lost or when you couldn't decide, just you could ask and it would be given. And so once I really knew that this is what I was going to do, I just trusted the universe, the Holy Spirit would guide me there. I didn't know how. I didn't know anybody. Never knew an actor. Never met an actor, but I just knew that it's in the asking. And of course, you have to prepare yourself and all that. But so there was never a doubt in my mind, a question that I would be successful. The problem was, I think I prayed not the wrong prayer. I should have added to that prayer, I want to make a lot of money. When you ask, I just want to work. I want to work. If you can just let me work in this industry, I'll honor it, and I'll be so thankful. I should have said, and make a lot of money. I forgot to put the money in.
I'm sorry, I forgot how funny you were. Anyway, that's really, really interesting. And that doesn't. And you went on to be in. You were in a play. You told me, I think, The Great White Hope. Right?
Yeah, that was a few years later. About, I think,
after, because you were part of the what was the ensemble called? I think it was the Actors Ensemble Theater. I think you established it, right? And then you were performing work that you created in another of your colleagues created, but then somebody recognized you and had you be in this play. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, most of the work I did at Wayne State, it was outside. It was in community theater. I didn't do a lot of plays at Wayne. Oh,
I see.
I visited the theater, and we went through the theaters and they were saying, does this bring back memories? And I'm like, not really, because I didn't spend a lot of time here. I was in the community.
Right.
I was, I was doing other stuff. But
right. I read that I think you did a play called Daddy Goodness, and that led you to meet Gordon Parks. Is this true?
What happened is I found my family.
Okay.
People ask sometimes, I said, acting for me, difference between theater and movies. In theater, it's a love affair. I mean, you love it. You become a part of the people, your fellow actors, you rehearse together, you get to know each other in a real personal way. In movies, it's not love. It's like sex. You know what I mean? It's like, you can get it, but don't confuse this with love, because
right.
One
very
night
different
thing,
yes.
and it's over, and you kind of wondering what happened and how come. No, ain't no love there.
I'm still wondering what
it's like. But I thought it was, But theater, there's a home there, and you feel a part of that. And I found my family.
Right.
There's a guy named Cliff Rockmore who was doing some amazing work in the community, and became my best friend actually for life until he passed. In fact, I dream about Cliff more than any person that I've ever known. He shows up he died a number of years ago, but he shows up in my dream all the time. So he was producing and directing mostly. I was doing some directing on the side, but mostly acting. So yeah, we eventually came out to California. In fact, I came out to California. He was directing Daddy Goodness and doing some stuff. And I had hit a real hard time, and that was the second time going to California. Things were really hard. I was staying at my brother's house. It was not a good, things are really, and I was concerned about my family. My wife had become disenchanted with
well, that's
me.
one way of putting it.
And I tried to get an agent and do all that, and it just turned down at every turn. And by accident, I met Gordon Parks' daughter. I didn't know it was his daughter. And he was doing a movie called Lead Belly. And through one of the strangest coincidences that probably can never happen twice,
Sure.
I met Gordon, got cast in the movie Lead Belly, and went to Texas, and it was one of those life-changing events.
Yeah.
And there was a guy named Michael Constantine who did a show called Room 222. And it was a school, and he was a teacher, or maybe he was a principal. I'm not sure. But Michael starred in that show, a TV show. And I was doing a play in L.A. I met Michael, didn't know him. Actually, he was at a party, and I just sort of went up and introduced myself and asked if he would introduce me to his agent, which he looked at me like, what, I don't even know you. But I guess because I had the audacity to ask, and I asked very sincerely, because why wouldn't he? And he said, okay.
Of course.
So he called his agent, and the agent gave me an appointment to go see him in Beverly Hills. And so I was staying at my brother's house. My sister-in-law had taken my clothes to the laundromat, and I went off and left them, and then remembered and went back, and they were all gone. So I really didn't have many clothes to wear, but I had to kind of look good for this interview. So my brother, I've had put his clothes on, but he's about 50 pounds lighter than me. So I had to kind of squeeze into them. But I got to this agent. I went into Beverly Hills, and I was intimidated to be in Beverly Hills, parked. And then I went in to see this guy and waited. And finally he came out to call me in the office. And before I could say anything, he says, listen, the only reason I'm seeing you is because Michael is one of my best clients, and he asked me to see you. So I saw you. So now you can leave. And I said, but I'm new, and I was trying to give him my little spiel. And he said, I don't want to hear that. I said, I don't want to hear it. I tried to show my portfolio. He says, I don't want to see that shit. He says, I get this shit in the mail every day. And he held up his waste basket. And it had a bunch of photos that actors had sent in. And he says, so I said, well, because I asked, can I give you my picture in case something comes up? He said, what am I going to do with that? So he says, best thing you can do is go back to Detroit or wherever the hell you come from, because you're not going to work out here. I can tell you that now. There's nothing for you here. And wow. I've been trying. I've been doing this play for free. I've been just, I was in my brother's house, and my little niece would say, "Daddy, he's eating all the food up," and it was just a bad time. So I was just so depressed, and but I went out to my car, and it just looked like it just depleted me, and I drove the car to they had it was a garage, so you had to pay. And back in those days, you didn't pay for parking. I didn't know you had to pay. And the guy said it was like $1.25. And I didn't have $1.25. So I said, I don't, he said, what the hell did you park here for in the first place if you knew you didn't have any money? And I just lost it, man. I just lost it. It was just so much stuff was happening, and I just started crying. And he said, just get the hell out of here. And I just pulled over, and I just looked like everything had just, And so the one number the girl I met at this party, and I couldn't go to my brother's house because I just couldn't hear any more comments about my not, doing my part. Man. So I called her, and she said, why don't you come over? And I went over there, and I told her what happened, and we drank some I don't know what it was because I'm not a drinker, but I got drunk, and then I went home, and I was just done for. I was out of all options, and then the phone rang, and it was Gordon Parks' office. They wanted to see me because he was doing a movie at Paramount, and I'm like, Paramount. Well, what had happened was when I went over to a house, the picture that I tried to give the agent he wouldn't take. Apparently, I was still clutching it when I went into her place, and I put it on her piano, set it on the top of the piano. And that night, her father was over to dinner, Gordon Parks, and he saw the picture, and he saw that I had gone to Yale, and he said, "Well, who's this guy?" And he was looking for someone who was strong enough to play opposite Roger Mosley, who was starring as Leadbelly. Right. And so they called me in, and I went in that's how I met Gordon. I got over there. They said, how fast can you be here? I said, I can be there in like 10 minutes. Of course, there's no way possible, but I just, I got there, and I was meeting Gordon Parks at Paramount. And so Gordon said, he explained what we're doing. This movie's about the music legend, Huddie Leadbelly. Yep. And, the problem is when he leaves home, there's a girl that he likes, but her boyfriend is this other guy, and they're competing for the girl, and there's a big dance, and there's a race where you drive this team of horses, a really big, important part of the movie, and he says, well, I have to ask you, have you been around animals? Can you drive a team of horses? Do you know much about horses? I said, yeah, I can do that. I know about horses.
Of course you can.
So he says, and now he says, there's a big dance. It's like he's, because at this dance, he's forced to leave town after, but there's a fight scene. You guys fight, but it's a big dance. And are you a dancer? Can you dance? And I said, well, I'm not a dancer, but I can learn. I'm really good. I can learn. Well, first I said I could. I convinced him, and then I started walking out the door, and I couldn't do it. So I turned around and said, "Mr. Parks, I'm not a dancer, but I know I can learn." And he says, he says, "Okay, all right, just wait outside." And
so
and
did you?
And
have,
then I
you...
said, and about those horses. I don't know much about horses, but I can learn about horses.
That's what I was gonna.
And I could just see he just like. So he said, "Just wait outside," and I waited, and the producer came up to me and he said, he said, "It looks like Gordon really likes you." He says, "So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay you $605 a week. How's that sound?" And I'm thinking, $605. Hell yeah. I didn't know the minimum he could pay me is $604. And I signed the contract on the spot. Pay me. I am so, And then I talked to an agent after. He said, "Why would you do that? Why would you take that?" And I'm like, "Because I don't know, it's $600." But anyway, that's how
my situation was a little different right before that happened.
Yeah,
I was depressed and down on my luck.
I was in bad shape. And Gordon,
it's all a matter of perspective.
He became a good friend of mine, and he was just amazing. It was an amazing experience, and I think I'm an actor to this day because of getting a chance to work with him and work on that movie is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, now that was after you were in the Minneapolis production of Great White Hope, right?
Yeah, that was
right?
That came after. I did Lead Belly, came back to LA, did some TV, but my wife was like not having it. She had just she was working on a PhD. She had a great job. She had gotten a new apartment. She had a car. I'm saying, hold on, we're gonna be together. Life, you marry forever, and so I left LA to go to Minnesota where she was to try and pull my family together. But that was long gone. Everybody knew it. The dog knew it.
The dog always knows it.
The dog would
they pick up on energies. Yeah, I'm convinced of it.
He wouldn't do anything I said. I'm like, go outside. He'd look at me like, I'm not the one leaving. I'm good. So finally, that was over, and that's when I was again at the bottom of I don't know what I'm going to do. The marriage isn't working. The wife has told me to get the hell out because I'm not contributing. Okay. And right. I'm in Minnesota. I got no money to get back to California. And and I met a guy. I had auditioned for the Great White Hope. And I met a guy named Willis Burks, who was became a lifetime friend. And I had his number in my pocket, so I called, and he asked me where I was. And he came over, picked me up, and I stayed at his house for like 3 months while we did the play. And I was turning 30. This was in the fall around September, and I was going to be 30 years old. I was 29 at that point. Okay. And so I just put everything into the play. I mean, I trained for it like a fight. I just and when the play opened in Minnesota, it changed my world. It changed my life. I mean, I've been an actor for that 10 years before, but I never made any money. Not really. I mean, I was just struggling. I managed enough to keep the heat on, feed the kids. Sure. Do the basic stuff. But I needed something. I just began to, when I went to Minnesota from LA, remember I said things were so bad and then they had lost my clothes and all that stuff. Sure. I just began to say, why am I doing this? The Great White Hope was it was a reaffirmation that, this is my calling. This is where I need to be. And it was a huge, huge hit, and you couldn't get a ticket. It was life changing for me. And did you play the lead? Yeah, Jack Johnson? I played the.
Well, it was based on Jack.
It was
Johnson's
based on Jack Johnson. Right? Yeah, in the play it was Jack Jefferson, based. Right. Based on Jack Johnson's life, and James Earl Jones had done the production, and right, and I did it in Minneapolis when we closed that production. They were doing it at the Missouri Repertory Theater. I heard about this, and and at that time, the University of Minnesota was doing a play of mine that I had written, but. We did the Great White Hope. I did a couple of plays, and I was doing a lot of theater here in Minneapolis. Sure. And so, but I heard they were doing the Great White Hope in that summer, and so I called up the theater director and asked to come down. She had heard about the production in Minnesota. The part was already cast by a very good actor. He was set to play the part. And she told me that the part was already cast. She was really sorry. She wished she had. And I'm like, I said, it's really too bad. She said, but I heard so much about it. Could you just do something? She said, I just would love to see you just do something for the play. So we went in the theater, and I did this monologue, and she said she was just so happy, and so we went to her office, and she called John, who was going to be doing the play, and she apologized, and she said, I'm sorry, but would you mind playing the part of the trainer Tick, because Ernie Hudson is here, and so
wow.
But he's one of my best friends now, and so we became friends.
That's great.
So
that's amazing.
And so we did it at the Missouri Repertory Theater. When that was over, I went out to L.A. My friend, who I mentioned earlier, who I worked with so much in Detroit, he was working with the Inner City Cultural Center, and we put the play on. I was one of the producers on that. But we got to play up and did the play here. And that's where Abby Mann came. The last night of the show, he came to see the play. And he was doing the Martin Luther King story in Atlanta. And he cast me in a wonderful role in that miniseries. And that's when I really started working in L.A. I just started, working. That was, I think, in 77, I think, 76, 77, somewhere in there.
I want to ask about your time at Yale, but before I do, what were some of your first roles after that experience? What were some of the things that kind of propelled you into the industry from that point forward?
Well, we did, I went back, I did the Martin Luther King story, and then I started working a lot, TV, movies. So I worked a lot. I was doing a TV movie with Robert Culp and Larry Hagman. And so I got this part, and we had a chase scene, and I was playing this guy who was, I think he was this, I don't know what, he was sort of this gay robber, whatever. They gave me some big blousy clown pants, It was, and so it was a chase scene, and I was to run and turn, and somehow, I don't know how it happened, but I was running and made the turn, my foot got stuck, and I fell and snapped my shin bone, just popped it. I mean, it just shattered it. And I'd never had a broken bone, or been in a hospital, or any of that stuff. And I was just, it was the worst. And so they took me to the hospital, and the studio called and said, wow, they really loved the work I was doing. They'd wait for me, take my time, heal. The part would be there. And the doctor said, it's going to take a lot of time. You need to be careful. It's going to be, weeks before you can really get up and about. And then the next day, the studio called, said, we've been looking at the footage. You're so good in the show. Can you be at work tomorrow? And I said, but the doctor, he said, yeah, but if there's any way you could, because we really appreciate it. So I went against the doctor's orders. I was in a cast, and they shot me from the waist up. And so I went there on my crutches, and then they'd, I'd stand on the one foot, and then when we were doing the scene, I'd give the crutches to somebody. I'd sort of, talk it out and do what I had to do. And then they'd give me the crutches. But what happened was, when they got the scene, they would just walk away, and I'd be like standing there. That's what I found out in the business. People don't care. I mean, it's when I broke my leg, I'm laying on the ground, and it shattered. I mean, my foot is under my knee. It just, and I'm laying there, and they had a little meeting. They were standing over me, and they said, what do you think? And I said, no, you think he's going to be able? They said, no, you kidding? This is really bad. I mean, he's really screwed that up. So he said, well, what do we do? So, and the wardrobe guy came over, and they took because I was wearing all this jewelry. They took the jewelry off of me. They started doing their day out of days when and somebody looked over me and said, well, we got to, what are we going to do with it? We got to get him out of here. I said, well, you need to take him to the hospital. We should call an ambulance. He says, no, I got my car here. So So, so they pulled the car up and they lifted me up to put me in the car, but they didn't lift the bottom part of my leg up, and I blacked. I just went out.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and it was really bad. I got to the hospital, and when I finally, I was just, I called my agent, and she said, "I got great news for you. You just got cast in this movie. It's shooting in Arizona." And I'm like, but I just broke my leg, and I'm in
Wow.
So when I came out of that, I got a part on this thing called Black Sheep Squadron with Robert Conrad and Peter Frampton. He was making he was in his acting debut.
Peter Frampton.
Yeah, he was. I was this island. They were in the South Pacific, and I was this island guy who was helping him, and he was fighting the resistance. Shirley Ralph played my daughter, and but I had literally just got the cast off. My leg was like half the size, and it was really tender. But I got cast in this thing, and I'm trying to do the best I can. But I'm an islander, so I'm wearing this skirt so you can see my leg, and one leg is really.
No.
But we're climbing hills. And so,
Lord!
And I'm afraid to say I can't do it because I'm thinking I'm going to lose the job. And then finally he says, "Well, okay, you're running from the Germans, so we want you to pick her up." So I picked up Cheryl,
Lord.
who's not a small person, and carried her down the hill. And all the while, my leg is aching, and I'm thinking I'm going to break it again.
What could go wrong?
Anyway, so that's
That's incredible. I had no idea. I had no idea any of this happened. This is totally inspiring. Talk about perseverance. Wow.
Well, life happens. I mean, I had that cast on. I kept hoping that I could get it off. They said maybe it might be 3 months, 4 months, maybe 6 months. It was like about 7 or 8 months. But while I had the cast on, I went in. There was an after school special. Oh, you know what? I'd gotten cast in this thing before I broke the leg, and then they said, "No, we have to recast because you got a broken leg and you got the thing on." And then I said, "Yeah, but you know what?" And I went in this whole spiel about, think about it. He's the high school coach. His job is to make sure that his students are safe. And so if they see him in a cast, that lets them know that even he can make a mistake. So they should really avoid it. He's there to teach them. And what better lesson than to have him in a cast? They said,
That's great.
God.
What'd they say?
Said, we never thought about that.
That's fantastic.
So I kept the job, and I worked. I worked during the whole time I had the cast on. But
that's amazing. And it's interesting how your performances were being noted. People were noticing that you had some skill and some talent. Would you attribute that? Because I found out that you mentioned that you had attended Yale, the drama school there. You got a full ride, I read.
Yeah.
Did you really learn did they take your craft to another level when you went there?
No.
Oh,
it was
really?
probably the worst thing. I should probably, if I had to do it again, I'd gotten a scholar, except at the University of Iowa in a playwriting program, which I really kind of wanted to do. But I'd seen Ronald Reagan in a movie where he had a Yale sweater on, and I thought, wow, if Ronald Reagan can go, that's got to be, really kind of cool. And
right.
So I had
you learn anything there?
No. So I got into Yale, and by just the weirdest coincidences, in fact, when I applied at Yale, it was after the deadline. I sent my application in, and they of course rejected it because I was like 2 months past the deadline.
Okay.
And so I really wanted to go, so I called and I got the director of admissions, a guy named Howard Stein, and I said, I know. He explained that it was maybe to apply next year, and I said, yeah, but I'm coming to New Haven, and I'm wondering if I can get an appointment with you. And I said, I'd just like to come in and just get your advice. Can I just talk to you? If you can just, give me a few moments. So he gave me this appointment. I wasn't going to New Haven, But my wife, who was then had just gotten a job as a librarian, and she was there was a convention in Pittsburgh. So I was going to Pittsburgh, and I thought, well, if we go to Pittsburgh, then we can go up to New Haven. I mean, how far apart can it be? I mean, it shows So we packed up the kids in the Volkswagen, and we went to Pittsburgh, and then for that weekend, and then I had the appointment for Monday morning, so we drove up to New Haven, checked in the hotel for the night, and got out the next morning, and I went to my appointment. And it was a parking space right in front. So I went in and I saw him, and he explained that the money had already been allocated. There was nothing. He appreciated me. He read a couple of my scripts and thought they were very good. Really encouraged me to apply next year. And I was saying, yeah, but I really need to go now. And, and he was so annoyed with me. He just turned his back to me. He said, well, I'm sorry. And he looked out the window, and, my kids had gotten out of the car and they were playing on the lawn, and we had our little bags in there. And he said, is that your car out there with the kids? I said, yeah, those are my kids. He said, you drove here? And I said, you don't understand. This is the most important thing in my life, that all I'm asking for is a chance. I did the whole thing. And he just looked at me. He said, well, thanks for coming in. And so we got in our car and we drove back to Detroit. We thought, we'd never been to Niagara Falls, and we had like about $40 left. And so we thought, let's just go there. So we went to Niagara Falls. Yeah, why not? And we drove. Beautiful. And we got home. We got to Detroit. The phone was ringing when I went in, and it was Yale calling to say I'd been accepted. And
wow.
That's how I got into Yale. But Yale wasn't the best experience because there were some black students there, but they weren't used to black students who looked like me, apparently, who, this was during, the Black Power, time. I had a long black leather coat. I had a black beret. I was real intense.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, really?
Attitude for days, and a little sensitive. Like, what did that mean? So I wasn't your average student. I mean, I tried to fit in, but it was kind of awkward. I got stopped by the police literally.
All the time.
All the time. I mean, all the time. New Haven is, Yale is right in the middle of this insanity, and the police, they gave me, I got stopped there quite a bit. I was in the cafeteria. I had my, my meal pass, and I'm sitting there and I'm eating, and then all of a sudden these police come in, and they take me out. I wasn't a student there, and I said I was, and I showed them my ID, and I had to go through this whole long thing. They kind of take me out, and I kind of, talk them down, and finally I had convinced them that I am a student, I belong here, and it was really awkward and embarrassing. Found out the lady who, when you go and you check in with, who was a black lady, she thought I didn't belong there, so she called the police on me. So Yale
that works at Yale?
That works at Yale, yeah.
Wow.
So it was, it was good. The classes were amazing. Yale Doctoral was one of the instructors. It was a great experience on one hand. On the other hand, I really wasn't prepared. I went to a school system that didn't even allow us to take high school algebra. I mean, we had shop math. And, I was part of it was a school that had this tracking system, and all of the black kids, except for one or two, was in this program that was just, tracked to fail. I mean that. I literally didn't have an 8th grade English. So my going to Wayne State is me sort of figuring out how do I make it through this. And I could figure it out at Wayne. When I got to Yale, it was a whole other level. These kids were prepared. They had stuff in kindergarten that I'd never even heard of. But, I held my own. I did. I mean, what it would take them, an hour to write a paper, it took me 2 days. But but it just wasn't the best experience. But I was there, and but I did some acting. I worked at the Cabaret. They have a small theater. I did a play there. I did a play on the Yale Repertory Theater. So even though I was a playwright, I was still acting, which was not. There was two black actors in the program who weren't really happy with me because I was getting the better roles. But yeah. So after the first year, I came home to my family in Minnesota, and literally when I just got there, I got a call from Cliff, my friend, who was doing. That's when I went to California and.
Oh.
So, but when I got Leadbelly was starting the same time that Yale was starting, and so I had to make a decision to take this movie that was going to be shooting in Texas or go back to Yale, which wasn't the happiest place. I just and I would have gone back because my ex-wife and we had this idea of, teaching, and we were going to be, but I'm like, I'm an actor, and I'd rather do it than teach it. So I went to Texas to do the movie, and very thankful that I did.
Yeah. Well, where did you really learn your acting chops? Where did you learn the craft?
Really, community, black theater, street theater, guerrilla theater in Detroit. I mean, I was on stage constantly, all the time. And of course, the classes, at Wayne State were great. I mean, they have a wonderful theater program there. And that was probably the basis for everything. But I was always on stage. I mean, I don't think there was a period the whole time I was at Wayne that I wasn't on stage, and and these were so it was it was Detroit. I didn't get much from Yale. It was a wonderful school and all that, but I really never felt a part of that.
It sounds like a lot of it is natural, and a lot of it was just being on the court playing, doing it and just testing your boundaries and honing your craft over years.
I think it's always reaching for the best. I think not just in terms of acting, but I think just in terms of life. We make choices, and you realize those weren't the best choices, so you strive to make better choices. You listen. You always reach for. I always found, like in rehearsal, I don't like to hold back. I mean, you want to put everything out there because that's when you learn what really doesn't work. If you don't go there, you got to go there. So it's always,
and be willing to make a mistake
and get out there. And the audiences, especially in Detroit during those days, they weren't forgiving. So if it wasn't working, you'd hear it. And So I think. That was Detroit was where I and the guys, the people, that family that I met, that that I'm still very close to. I mean, people I work with a lot of people. I tend not to get close to people, but the people that I started with in Detroit, they're still the ones who are still around. They're still my best friends. I mean,
that seems to be a reoccurring theme with actors. I've heard. I just saw this documentary about Lin-Manuel Miranda, and they had a Freestyle of Love Supreme documentary on Hulu, and he talked about this theater rap singing group that these guys all did and all of a sudden, like, you see all of them in Hamilton. I'm like, what? Yeah. And this seems to be... and what was the gentleman's name who was in Shawshank? Tim Robbins.
Oh yeah.
He spoke of this, and I think he's an incredible actor. Yeah. But something you said before really struck me about wanting to break away from the religious structure and wanting to see behind the curtain. Was that part of your impetus to want to act and want to write? It seems like that's a would naturally dovetail or lead to wanting to explore the human condition, which a lot of what acting kind of is.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very hard to see things in a very locked in way. You have to be willing to open up other possibilities, or things that you would never consider. But if you're playing a character who did consider those things, I mean, you can't judge that character. You can say these are things that I would never do, but I'm playing someone who did do that. So
Right.
So you got to be open. And how does that person, they certainly didn't think about it the way I think about it. So I think it forces you to open yourself up. And I think church, for me, organized religion, it locks you in, in a strange way. I believe, and the way I was taught, I think as a kid, is love unites, love joins, love pulls us together, and hate what separates us. It's the uniting thing that, and church in its own way, separates us. It's the saints against the sinners. It's the good against the bad. It's this constant war. And I just believe that we're all of it, but we strive for the light. We're constantly growing. We're constantly learning, and it's there's no harm, no sin in failure or making a mistake. And I love the mistake, because as an actor, in movies, we do these takes. And if it wasn't a good take, just do another one, and you do another one, and however many takes you need to get it right, but you're always striving to get it right. And,
Yes.
And what's right is what feels right, what works for everybody. And that's kind of the core of my belief. And in my church, I felt a lot of people were not there. They were very judgmental. The Bible says, judge not that you be not judged. And so that's the hardest thing for me, is the fact that I don't understand something makes me want to judge it. And I realize that I can't think for somebody else. So, but yeah, I think, and being in acting is something that I think the church that I grew up in, they're very proud of the fact that I've become a successful actor, but yeah, it wasn't something that I think they'd encourage. I never played sports because it was against the church rules. We didn't.
Oh,
yeah, you didn't compete. Now, of course,
really?
they have a church basketball team. But back in the days when I was a kid in church in the 50s, I mean, it started out very strict. I mean, women had to cover their heads, and you couldn't wear makeup. And now, of course, it's a fashion show when you go, but it's, things have, the church has evolved.
I know just what you
I mean. It's,
my dad, he dragged me to a lot of churches in the African American community growing up. So I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. It's like, it's an event.
Yeah, no, it's
a seen and be seen event. Yeah. And it always struck me as kind of strange, I also was wondering though, it's interesting, given your really interesting journey, that winding journey where it seemed like you had no hope, and then all of a sudden, like, one little thing happens, you leave a picture on a piano or something, and then next thing you know, you're cast in this movie. I mean, did this heighten your spirituality, but maybe lessen your affinity for the church or organized religion? Would that be safe to say?
Well, I appreciate organized religion. I get it, but what I don't get is, it seems to be saying to me that there's something you have to do to earn this. My grandmother told me that it is a part of you. Of course, there are places you can go and where you can learn more and grow, and that's what church should be about, but that you don't have to do something. It's spirit is in everyone. You don't have to qualify for it. You can turn away from it. You can ignore it. You can not be aware, but it's still there waiting for you to. And so for me, not knowing, and even now, I don't trust the people in the industry. The Bible says, "Put not your trust in man." I just know the universe will deliver, and it's always been someone who I least expected. The ones who I've gone out of my way and done the most for, they're not the ones who show up when I really needed it. So I think it was a time when I just knew the way I felt, and I'm not saying this about all churches, because I haven't been to all churches, but I just felt like to be, I didn't want to be in that little community of, he's a sinner and he failed and we should kick him out of the church, or we should, my pastor, he would get up and he would call you out.
Wow.
so and so, you was going there. They said you was in and you did this, and I was like, oh,
Oh my goodness.
you didn't put up how much money? You didn't put $10 in offer.
Here we go.
You making $20 an hour, and you all you put in is like what? People are looking at him. So the pastor was a close. He talked to God, and the rest of them, I guess. I just couldn't get to. We had a poor folks offering. They call it a poor folks offering. So every time we went to church, they do a little collection for the poor folk. And then when I was probably about 15, maybe younger. I don't know. I was in junior high, so it might have been a little younger. But we hit a spell where we had no money. I mean, and we had no money because my grandmother pledged to give the pastor so much money to go to this trip in Memphis. And she gave him the money.
Oh, goodness.
But then she had some money that she had done laundry or something, and the people didn't pay her. And we were out. We were out of food. We had nothing to eat. We had to wait until the 1st when she got a check. And this is like 6 days or something, and she didn't know what to do, and she was really just torn up about it. So we talked about everything. We talked, and she said, "I'm going to have to go and ask the pastor." And I said, "No, Mom, don't." She said, "No, we have." So she went and talked to the pastor's wife and explained our situation and asked for help. And so this is a Tuesday night, and we're sitting. And I would sit on the front pew, and we're sitting there in church, and the church is wrapping up, closing service, and then the pastor's wife gets up and she says, "Folks, before we go, Mother Donald is my grandmother, and her son Poochie, that was me. They don't have any food, and she was just pleading for us, and it was so embarrassing. It was just so embarrassing.
My gosh.
So she said, "Can we raise some money to help them?" And they raised like $3.70. And I'm thinking, what happened to the poor folks offering? I mean, we raised. Who are those poor folk who took all the money? And it wasn't. And then my grandmother felt like. And then so we went home that night, and we sat and we had some crackers. We got some crackers, and we're sitting there, and she felt really bad about it. I said, "Mom, we're going to be fine." And just, and so we just sat there in silence, and it was just this amazing moment that I felt so connected to her. And so I went on a fast. The first time I went on a fast, I went on a 5-day fast. That
How old were you?
And I was in junior high in 8th grade, so whatever that is, 13.
13.
Yeah. And I found it was very interesting because I was really kind of tired and exhausted the first couple of days, but after 3 days, I felt fine.
You had energy.
Man. And I was
amazing.
I was alert. And so since then, I fast every year. I go on a fast. But it took away that fear of you going to die. Because some people think if I don't eat every day, I'm going to die. And you realize that, so it was one of the best things that happened to me, but it was kind of, there was sometimes you're forced into that space of, I can't go any further.
Right.
And so I have to turn it over to the universe. I have to ask, I have to entrust that the answer will be there. But if you can't get to that place and you make the decision, that's when you go out and rob somebody. That's when you go out and do something really stupid because you think, I got to do something. I'm like, no, it's time for me to just be still and trust.
Right.
And it always comes, but sometimes I have to be forced to that place.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Well, it was, it's so interesting when you were talking about being in the religious environment, how, a lot of the leaders of religious environments will try to make life, cut it into black and white, good, bad. Yeah. And, as we all know, as we get older, it's way more nuanced than that. And everybody's got the capacity to be good and bad and everything in between. But it must be really liberating to be an actor now because you have really, and you said, yeah, I could try stuff out. Like I just watched you in The Family Business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And boy, that's a complex character. Could you talk a little bit about that? Did you help develop that character first of all?
Well, it's based on a series of books. A guy named Carl Weber.
Okay, right.
Carl, and I don't know how many books are in the series, but so it's it's his thing. He writes all the shows, and but I love the character. I love the family, the love of the family. Do what you have to. And I knew guys like that. It's never been I've never been to that place. You know what I mean? That place
Sure.
that
Sure.
when I was a kid, I fought a lot. I mean, I loved to fight. I would beat people up.
Really?
You know what I mean? I think because
This is shocking. I would have never imagined.
No,
that.
I was.
You're one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Well, when I was a kid, because people would, they knew first off I didn't have a father, so they would look at me funny. And I thought they were putting me down. I was always suspicious of people. I didn't go around people especially with their dads, because sometimes the dads, I could beat them up, but I couldn't beat the dads up. So I was always cautious, and but I would fight. I finally got to a point where I couldn't fight without feeling it myself. And you begin to learn that what you give out is what you receive. I got into a fight as an adult. So you begin to learn that you make other choices. You don't go to that place. And as an adult, I went out with a lady who was separated from her husband, and her husband found us, and we got into this fight on the streets, and
oh Lord!
And so it turned into a bad thing where he went to his car to get his gun, and we ran into a friend's house, and he was downstairs knocking, banging on the door. It's at 1:00 at night, and my friend said, "Ernie, what you got to deal with this, man." So he gives me his gun to go down and face this guy.
Here we go.
And so the whole situation turned out. But what I found when we were actually in the street fighting, he couldn't fight very well. But every time I hit him, it just hurt me. Every time I felt so bad for him, because there are places you can't go, if you empathize, if you feel that. And I felt his pain, and I knew exactly, what he was feeling. I knew why he was fighting me. I knew I had to defend myself, but see, as a kid, I wouldn't have even, I'm sorry. I was taught you just take him out as quickly as possible. So,
right.
But I couldn't do that. So family business. So I love that character who, it's just, we do what we got to do. We do it for the family. But even he has issues. He has, you can put up that hard front, but underneath it all, it's still, you got to live with it.
Well, it's such a nuanced character. For those of you who don't know, Ernie Hudson plays a role of a man that operates a very successful exotic car business on the surface, but yet is running drugs below the surface. And he is an incredibly insightful and excellent tactician with running his business, and he runs it through his family, and he's extremely... he's like the Godfather, kind of like, so to speak, and he's rough and he's tough.
Now, this is a car.
Show good taste. Why don't you get inside? Feel how the leather hugs you.
You're kidding me, right?
Get in. I promise you've never experienced anything like it.
All right.
She looks good on you. How would you like to own this baby?
You're not serious, right? This is one expensive piece of machinery.
I've never been more serious in my life. If our business arrangements proves lucrative, in 6 months, the car is yours. That is, as long as you stay the hell away from my daughter. If you touch her, if you so much as look at her the way you looked at her today, I'll pull your lungs out through your nostrils. Does any of this bear repeating?
But he's also very kind and caring and sincere.
Clarence, you have always been a great son-in-law. But today, you have become as much my child as any of the others. From now on, would you do me a favor?
What's that?
Call me Bob.
And so, but, I thought, wow, that looks like a fun role for you to play.
Yeah.
Because it's so multifaceted.
Yeah, you look for that. I've always looked for that. And I've always looked, I think as an actor, I was looking at Jack Palance in City Slickers. You know, he had this amazing career, but he never found that role. And then he played this character, and it was an amazing character. And you saw, I mean, you just saw him just, I mean, that's what he had been his whole career, waiting to do this role. And so, and for me on stage to do the Jack Jefferson character in Great White Hope was, you know, that's when it all kind of comes together. And I haven't found that in TV and film yet. But
you haven't? Wow, I was just going to ask you. Okay.
For a lot of the stuff, it's they don't want all of you. You know, you're here to service the lead here. You're here to bring in some information. We don't want to see, they don't want all of that. They want you to, So it's very difficult. And a lot of the work I've taken in the past because of the money. It's like, okay, I got this job. Pay me and I need the money. And it's not about me. It's about, and even if I'm one of the leads in it, I know that they want or I believe they want to focus somewhere else. Now, some of those choices I might have made and I might not have had to make them. You know, I've grown to the point now of just saying, you know what, I'm just going to be, I have to do this the way I know it has to be done as opposed to trying to accommodate. You know, you kind of go, I don't see it that way, but, you know, I'll do that. I'll stretch as far as I can to keep the studios happy and I don't you know I wouldn't do that now, but before it was about, you know, keeping the work and
sure yeah, that sounds really liberating. But, I mean, you were an executive, I mean, you are, I don't know if the show is still running, but you're an executive producer.
Yeah, we're running. In fact, I fly out of town on Sunday in a couple.
Oh, that's what you're flying for?
Yeah, we shut down halfway. We had 13 show pickup, and we only did 6, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to shut down. So we're going back to finish up the rest of the season. Very popular. People love the show. I love the characters. The kids who are playing my family. Valerie Pettiford plays my wife. She's wonderful, amazing.
You want some salad?
Orlando, Junior, Chippy.
LC, we in the kitchen, honey. What's going on? What's wrong?
Where's Orlando?
I haven't seen him, Pop.
Go find him now. Get Lou over here, too. Go wake up Harris.
LC, what's going on?
We're at war, Chippy. We're in goddamn war.
Chamomile, a little brandy, calm the nerves.
Thanks. Someone's pulling a lot of strings to put us out of business. I don't know if we can fill our orders.
One thing you haven't considered, that young boy we saw today.
I don't trust the man that boy represents.
Neither do I. But I don't think we have a choice.
It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's just I love that character. Yeah, so every show is just why I love acting. Every show is a little bit different. Every character is a little bit different. Sometimes it's so subtle that people, you know, but as an actor, you know, it's not the one, you know, but I love that. That's the part of the work that I really like the most.
Well, you know, it was also when I was watching The Family Business, it also reminded me of your character in The Substitute. When with Tom Berenger, I think you that was he
played
a principal.
And he was kind of he was. Well, he didn't have his money. Well, yeah, he was a little bit nastier, I think, than LC. LC has some integrity.
Rough.
Yeah, he's rough, but
exactly.
But he has his ethics. You know, however he developed those. But he has some kind of code. Whereas in The Substitute, this guy was.
He's got a rationale for his behavior for sure.
Yeah.
LC does, yes. Yeah. But in The Substitute, you know, you're running drugs.
Yeah.
You know, through the school.
Right.
And there's this one scene with you and Mark Anthony where you're really pissed off at him, and he plays the character of a gang leader that actually works for you that goes to the high school.
Did you rip off Johnny Glaze last night?
Lie to me and I'll rip your fucking head off.
Me? Did you tell anybody about the pie last night? Anybody? Look at me, goddammit.
I did what the fuck I was supposed to do, man, and I split. You think those fucking Indians want me knowing their business?
It was somebody found out, and we could be in real deep shit.
It was just so interesting to see you play, because you're very convincing at playing, you know, like a statesman type of a role where you're in an official capacity. You just give off this air of authority and just, you know, like you've got it handled. You just do that naturally. So to see you play as part of your character, you know, someone you got some nefarious intentions and doing some stuff that's not on the up and up was really, really interesting to see you play. And I would imagine it's liberating. So like, you know, what's your role besides being an actor on The Family Business? I'm curious, as an executive producer, what kind of things do you weigh in on? Character development or scripts?
Well, I do, but I really trust Carl. And so basically, as executive producer, why am I executive producer? You know, because and I'm at a stage in life where I'm not interested really in taking on too much. People say, you know, you can do. I'm like, you know what? I have nothing to prove anymore. I'm not trying to worry about some kind of legacy. I just, you know, I'm good. You know, I'm just now learning who my wife is.
You're free.
I'm just, but
that's beautiful.
On this show, in order for it to get to where it is on TV and get made, my involvement. So what I brought to make it happen, which is why I'm one of the producers, and I do weigh in, but we got, you know, Indy Brown, who produces the show. It's a wonderful team. Trey Haley, who directs most of the shows. It's a great team, and I just trust all of them. Yeah, so I do anything that I need to help in any area that I can. But they're amazing people, and it's covered, and you know, we're on BET, which is, you know, which is kind of interesting, you know, but
well, how so?
I mean, if, you know, as opposed to, you know, Sony, which, you know,
sure
has the money, you know, with
right.
It's like, okay, all right, this is nice, but how much money is this? Because you know, I'm, you know, like I said,
but I mean,
that prayer that I didn't pray, it shows up in shows like this. But
you know, you said so. You've said so many things that are striking me. I'm having a tough time categorizing and prioritizing what I want to ask you. But you said something that really struck me in terms of with a more, you know, now you're freed up and you say what's on your mind and you know, act accordingly, which is a beautiful place to be. But you know, with studio productions, you have less leeway. But I would imagine with independent productions, you have a little bit more leeway. Like they probably want more of you. Is that true?
Yeah, you know, but I try
more of your input.
Like when we did Man in the Silo, for those who don't know, we Steve is a producer, and we had a wonderful time with that. But I trust Phil Donlin. I'd like to trust the director. It's hard to work with someone you don't trust. And
that's what's so amazing to me. You didn't know us at all. We came up to you in the middle of a news interview, which I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And we pitched this thing to you. And next thing you know, we're meeting you the next day for lunch. And for some reason, you trusted us.
Yeah.
We felt really connected with you. And it was one of those, you know, like, you know, those things that happen in your life, like you leaving the photograph on the piano. It was one of those things like, man, we needed to meet this guy.
Well, that's
how it felt.
And I think that's how the universe works. I mean, it works that way for, you know, on my behalf, but sometimes it uses me to work on the behalf of someone else. And I think that we have to be available. So when you guys came to me and you said, I have this thing, and I'm like, there's something about you. I mean, I can't say that anybody walking up. I believe you're competent. I believe that you, but you know, that this is what I need to make this happen. And even though sometimes it's a challenge, when they want you to come to friggin' Chicago and Wisconsin and shoot in a silo in winter in December. But
my God.
you commit to it.
Oh my God.
I believe as an actor, all you have is yes or no. And if it's yes, then you need to be there. And I never want to undermine a director unless I have no faith in him. In which case, then I say, I'm sorry, I'm not. But I really want to help him create his vision and the produce. I want to be there in a team player way, and because we're telling this story.
It was incredible. It was for those just to recount, we were at a film festival. We met Ernie Hudson in the middle of a Maserati dealership in the middle of a party, and we're pitching him a script when the music is going. It was ridiculous. And so, but the way I interrupted the interview, which apparently he was being interviewed, Ernie was being interviewed by a local TV news team, which I didn't even notice the camera. I was so focused on pitch because we were surrounding him and we're ready to make our move. And the interviewer said, well, what are you up to next? He's like, I'm just looking to find the next project. And I stepped in the interview and I said, well, my name's Steve Ordower. This is Phil Donlin, and we think we have a project for you. And next thing you know, for the next 30 minutes, we're talking to him. And I'm just staring everybody down while Phil pitches in the script. So, and then we met the next day.
It'd be hard in the middle of the interview to say, get the hell away from me. It's got it doesn't play well on TV. But
you seemed generally interested or just extremely polite, or maybe you're just a hell of an actor, which you are. But it was amazing that you listened, and then we had this meeting. But what was so fascinating, and I'll never forget this, Ernie, was that in the very beginning of shooting, I got word that you were questioning the lack of coverage that Phil was shooting, because he was shooting The Man in the Silo, which is available on Amazon Prime, for those of you who don't know, it's atypical. He wasn't getting traditional coverage, and he was not shooting it in a traditional way.
I thought, what would it be like to shoot a film that's a visual nightmare, and not do the typical coverage? So I didn't want to do, and when I say typical coverage, close-up, two-shot, wide shot, and that's what it consists of, and that's what most movies do. I said, well, let's do just one shot that takes us into the next, that takes us into the next. And I remember Ernie, when he first got on set, because he's like, who are these crazy dudes? He's like, when's my close-up coming? I'm like, you don't have one. So he's like, what? And I mean, because it was a very odd way to sort of shoot a movie. But that's what I wanted to feel like. I wanted the whole film to feel surreal, dreamlike.
And so you asked the first AD a couple of times to ask Phil, are you sure you don't want a reverse, a close-up, da-da-da? And Phil's like, no, I don't. Yeah. And I know exactly what I want. And he was a little bit taken aback by your inquiries, which was fascinating to me. But you actually kind of encouraged him and said, hey, look, man, this is the way it is. You're the director. I'm here. I'm going to give what I can, or something to that effect. And you just put wind in his sails, and he got really confident. And I got to tell you, I think, honestly, I've watched a lot of your films. Obviously, I'm biased. I worked on the film, and I worked really hard on it. But I think it's one of your finest performances, and that includes In the Family Business, Hand That Rocks the Cradle, in Oz. I mean, you especially when you break down in the silo, it was just remarkable, because I was the only guy in the silo. Right. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. Everybody cleared everybody out, and I had no idea the intensity that you were going to unleash at that moment. And I actually, this wave of fear ran through my body as dust was being shot into my eyes, because you were hitting the bat on the ground, and you were just so angry. You're so upset and pissed off and just distraught on a whole nother level. And I was like kind of like a little bit shaken. I mean, and then you went to a place and you were there, and I was like, Phil, man, I think you need to talk to Ernie. Could you talk a little bit about how did you get to that place? I always wondered, and where did you go mentally? Because it took you like 5 to 10 minutes to even say a word. I'll never forget that, and I never had experienced anything like that, and I saw it up close, and I still get moved when I see it on screen. Could you talk about the process, how you get to that place, and how to come out of it?
I don't. It's funny with acting because people have asked me would I teach classes or give workshops, and I'm not very good at criticizing or instructing anyone. I don't know how you do what you do. You know what I mean? It's like the baseball player. I don't know how I hit the ball. I just hit the ball. So, but I think there's a place where you have to let go and go with spirit. I mean, I don't know any. There's a place when we try to hold on, we try to control. Even a lot of times in the work with acting, you say it. You want to say it a certain way. You're aware of your surroundings. You're aware of how you're delivering it. You're aware of things in film, especially. It's a little easier in on stage because on stage you have to be in that moment. But in film, because you can control it. If it doesn't work, you can do it again and again and again. But I think as an actor, there's a place where you just have to be there and show up in the present. It's you can't really, you can rehearse around it, but you're not sure yourself where this is going. You just you're a part of. It doesn't happen very often, but right. you just have to let go and try to just get to the integrity of the character. And you hope it works. And sometimes maybe it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't fit or whatever. Or the director uses something else that and the people never see that particular take. But I think, and I know in that one we just had to show up. You just had to show up.
Well, it's interesting how I would imagine, certain directors that you click with give you the space, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, to be free in that moment. I mean, obviously you seem to be very free with making that film, and you and Phil seem to connect in a very unique way because he, I think he's a talented actor, and you guys appeared again in High and Outside, which he got you in, the baseball movie, and he told me about that scene before I saw it, where you're the manager in High and Outside and you're cutting his character, who's a minor league baseball player, from the team, and finally I say, look, it's time to hang up the cleats, which is a very tough thing to hear for any athlete that has aspirations to go to the major leagues, which he was very close to and his father did. But the way you were able to be so forceful at the same time being absolutely so compassionate and humane was really, in the same scene, was really remarkable to me.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah.
Hey, Skip.
Come in. Shut the door. Sit.
Thanks.
So, how's your old man holding up?
He's all right. He's good. Second stroke kind of wiped him out, but he's hanging in there. So
I'm gonna be straight up with you. I gotta let you go. Billy.
I'm hitting it hard. I'm just hitting it right at him.
I brought you on as a favor to your old man, but you're just at that stage where you're not putting up numbers.
All right. I don't hit 300. Don't steal 10 bags. I'll retire.
I'm sorry, Bill. This is it.
Doesn't make any fucking sense, man.
No. Actually, it does.
You wanted me to fail. Now you got what you wanted, so I failed.
I'm releasing you because you can't fucking play anymore, okay? You're not hitting. You couldn't hit water. Fuck if you fell out of a boat.
It's fucked, man. I only been thrown out once this year. Once. That's it.
Yeah, you're a base stealer. But correct me if I'm wrong. Hell, you can't steal first base. Am I wrong? Hell, I got a rule book here someplace.
Hey, you know what? Fuck you.
Wait a minute.
All right? I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna catch on with another club. I'm gonna fucking stick it up your fucking asses.
Sit the fuck down. Sit down! I gotta do what's best for this team here, son. Now, you're a veteran guy, but I can find a guy who makes half of what you do and plays great defense, who at least makes contact. It ain't about you, it ain't about your goddamn character, okay? You're a great clubhouse guy. You know the game, but you're getting old, and you can't fucking play anymore. You ain't got it anymore.
I'm gonna prove you wrong.
Good. Hell, I hope you do. I hope you fucking do, but goddamn it, Bill, have you ever thought about maybe doing something else?
I ain't fucking done. I'm gonna catch on with another fucking club.
How the fuck you gonna do that when no scout has brought your name up in, 6 years? 6 years. I hate to be so blunt with you. I mean, I really do. But it's only because I think the world of you. It's time, son. Half the guys I have this conversation with, they come back 2 years later and they thank me. You can't see it. I know. But everybody else can.
Fuck it.
You listen to me, okay? What you do, goddamn it, that's your decision. Now, if you want me to call some managers and testify to your character, you know damn well I'll be happy to do that.
Thanks, Skip.
You give my best to your old man, all right?
All right.
Okay.
Love you, Skip.
Love you too, son. You gonna be all right?
Okay.
Do you remember ramping up for that with Phil at all in that scene? Was he kind of trying to pull more out of you at the moment, or it just flowed?
No, I think I think it's kind of who we are. I like Phil, and when an actor, that's why it's good to work with. You know, in the old days, and sometimes you see it now, they will cast someone who's not strong, and so they then will cast people around them who are, you know, not strong because they don't want them to take the focus. So you end up, if you're really strong or aware of, you know, what you're doing, they think it'll make the guy. But what happens usually is it raises your level. And when you work with good people, like I can't do family business with Valerie and not show up. Yeah. Because if I do, she would just take the whole damn thing.
You know, it's like
run away with it.
It's like playing jazz.
You have to,
like, you know, the jazz musicians feed off each other all the time.
Yeah. And that's and when it works well. So when you work with someone like Phil, he's there, he's present. So you got to be present, and if it's really flowing, you just like, you know, the Man in the Silo, you can lose yourself and be in that where it's you, but it's great.
Yeah, you're free.
You're just doing what you do.
And for our audience, Ernie Hudson plays the lead role in The Man in the Silo, a middle-aged African-American man, high-powered executive, who marries his younger white secretary. They have one child together. And against his better judgment, they move out to the rural parts of Illinois, outside of Chicago, to take care of his wife's ailing grandmother, who's all alone because her husband died in a grain silo accident. And we're going to hear a clip from the film in which Ernie's character is confronting the grandmother, who's rather racist and never wanted him to marry her granddaughter.
Charlotte's coming to get me, huh? Died in a grain silo. Fell in? I say, one of Charlie's Negroes, or what you used to call them when I was out of the room, the help. Yeah, I say the help. Just got tired of working his land for potato soup. Emily used to always defend you and Charlie. I say it's all bullshit. If I was there, I'd have pushed him in myself.
When you're just doing what you do.
Hey, yo, we can do this every night until you answer, because I know you can answer. You can talk. This is my house now, just as much as it is yours. Hey, how about we have to come up to the picture?
And this is Ernie speaking at the film's premiere at the Gene Siskel Film Center in Chicago.
Being African American in America, it's a little hard to kind of define where we are. Where's our community? You know what I mean? Suddenly I'm walking down the streets of my city and I don't see anybody who look like me, and I think, man, I'm a long way from home. You know, you get on a train to go home, and when you start, 75% of people on the train is black, and by the time you get where you're going, you got no black people left on the train. And so we're always sort of balancing these things and trying to be normal, but it's a weird kind of existence. And so I thought this film sort of explored a little bit of that, at least attempted to. So
Right.
And it doesn't happen often, and sometimes you can try to make it happen, but sometimes you can. But it's good to have skills,
absolutely,
and have a craft. So when you can't get to that place, you can still, you can hit the marks you can do, and the work is still good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was interesting when I was editing. I was also the editor on The Man in the Silo, and seeing all the takes. I'd say we got 5 takes of you doing whatever in a scene, and 3 of them were really great.
Yeah,
and then the other 2 were like good. And I could pull stuff from every one, and that was my first time where I had so much abundance of choices in terms of the takes. I'd never had that before. And that's probably what made me into a decent editor, is doing the most with little resources. Right. But this time, and I learned a lot about the craft of acting, but sitting with Phil and him talking about it and watching films before we'd edit, and then watching him direct you and watching him talk about your performances. And I learned a lot about how, he would talk about great actors will bring the emotions up to the surface, but sometimes pull them back,
right,
kind of bring the audience in. I don't know if you do that consciously or not, but there's a subtlety to great actors, like with De Niro.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Yeah,
Now I could see it. Before I didn't even notice it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, it's different. Obviously, I was talking to James Earl Jones years ago. We worked on Roots, and he was saying that it was very difficult for him to transition to television and film, because on stage he commands the stage, but there's a bigness or whatever that you can't bring to film and TV, and because the camera's right there. But so a lot of it you have to pull back if it's going to be effective. I mean, that's why, and on Family Business, we get into it a lot of times where we're in the middle of a scene and the people around love it. And when the scene is over, they're clapping and shit. And I'm like, you know what? It might have played in the room, but it might not play and it's very dangerous. You know what I mean? So, because it's a very subtle thing.
Medium.
Yeah. How do you show up? How do you be there? It's like, I walk on the wire. I think, before I became an actor, I was in Detroit, and this is a little off topic maybe, but the great Wallendas, the tightrope walking family. Are you familiar with them? They generations of, they walk the wire.
No.
That's
okay.
Right. And they had a big accident where I think it was 12 people something on the wire, and the people who know the real story will listen to this and think Ernie's stupid, but it was just, it's a family, and they go back generations.
Okay.
That's what they do.
Sure.
The great Wallendas. He came to, it was my first winter in Detroit. It was a bad winter, but he came to Detroit and he was going to walk. They strung a wire from the top of the Hudson building to some other department store. They strung this wire
in the winter.
It was in the winter, but and the weather was supposed to be fairly mild, and he was going to walk the wire. Well, the day when he was going to walk it, the storm came, and it was an awful storm. And they said,
and he's still
going to postpone it. He says no. He says because I walked the wire. So it was televised, and they had him, and he was walking, and the wind was blowing, but he walked across. And when he got
he did it?
Yeah, he did it. He did it. It was amazing.
Oh my God.
I mean,
he made it.
It was so intense because I thought, oh my, and there was no net or anything, so it was. And when he got to the other side, they wrapped him in blankets and they were interviewing him, and they said, why do you do this? He says, because it's the one thing in the world I do better than anyone else. It's the one thing. Now, that may be his opinion. It may be true. But it's important that he believes that.
Right,
it's important that you believe this is what I do. This is mine. You know what I mean? And you can play with other people and they play, but this is what I do. This is my turf. This is, so, and I think with acting, when you're allowed to work, when people aren't interfering, the studio interferes, the studio tries to control it. Just
sure, of course,
for reasons other than the art, but it's what you do, it's your calling. And I think when you're working on a character and you're allowed the freedom to work, how you color it, how it's and I don't know if you can teach that. I can see it, I can appreciate it, but I don't know how to tell somebody to get there. You know what I'm saying?
No, I've always thought about that. I remember when I interviewed you for a behind the scenes thing when we did The Man in the Silo, and you were talking about getting to the truth, finding some. You want to find the truth in the character, and to me it sounded like you're basically saying is you want to portray this character as genuine as possible, as true to the character with all the ups and all the downs and all the nuances.
Right.
And if you can do that, well, then that's remarkable. That's great, and that's really liberating as an actor to show your range and to get into the subtleties of the human condition and the nuances. By the way, I didn't know were you in Roots?
I did. What was a small part?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was. It was Roots 2. It was the second.
Okay.
Roots, and like I said, it was a small part with James Earl Jones was playing. He was playing Alex Haley. And then there was a meeting between him and Malcolm X, and I was one of the Muslims who was a guard who was sort of in the meeting. So I didn't do much in it, but I was there. It's some of my one of my credits, but I got to know James Earl Jones, as much as you can know somebody in a couple of days. And I when I was on Broadway, I would run into him from time to time, but I just love him as an actor because but I think also when you find a character, it's funny how you can kind of be around, but when you zero in, when you're there, that's why every take is a little bit different because you can't do any wrong. You are the person. You know what I mean? And so it's like, what do I do to be Ernie Hudson? Whatever I do, it's because it's me. So, but when you're not there, you can't, get into that space, then that's when it's hard. And sometimes I've had scenes where I can't feel it. I can't, that's when you really want a good director. And sometimes you don't, there was a scene in the Martin Luther King story, the miniseries, where I was on the balcony when King was shot. And I was one of the guys, even though historically it wasn't correct because the character I played was not there. But the director, Abby Mann, liked my work, and he put me in the scene, which is whatever But when I had to play this scene with his brother, and I didn't know where to go with it. I just felt fake. I just felt. And that's an awful feeling because you torture yourself days after. Because you just felt, So anyway,
So did he help you through that at all, or did the director?
not really,
He just wasn't...
not really. That's what I say.
Okay,
That's when it helps to have a craft because
Right.
I know I can, and you hope this is good enough. You hope this is, you
Yeah,
hope
and it
works.
probably was.
And yeah,
Probably
nobody
was.
says, "Oh man, what happened to you in that scene?" So,
Right, but you know.
but yeah, then your heart, you feel like yeah. So
It's interesting when what you were saying before, when you are around quality actors that really are bringing it and present and understand how to tap into that genuine energy of their character, it's inspiring you. So like your creativity is sparking. I know that when I play music and I'm improvising, if I'm in the moment and I'm feeling it, ideas will be like boom, 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 boom.
yeah.
There'll be sparking, like I'm just like flowing with the myriad of ideas that are organically popping up. I would imagine it's a similar experience for you when you're acting with some quality actors around you.
Yeah, and and unlike you can't improvise in terms of changing the dialogue because that's kind of set. Certain things are set, but there are certain things of how we get to that place, how we dance.
Of course, exactly.
On stage, I love stage, even though the last play I did, I think my fellow actors were probably thrown off a little bit. I just think that we block this, we set it, but when we come out on stage to play, I mean, we have our our boundaries, but it's time to dance. And if you come at me that way, then obviously I can't do what I did last night because we just changed the chemistry here. And so and that's what I love about it. But some actors want, let's lock it in. And then, of course, in film, you get a lot of actors, they just want to do whatever the hell they want to do, and they don't care about anybody else. But I got to play with you. I got to respond to this nonsense on screen. So you can't just go off, And some people feel they're secure enough in the show, which means they can't get fired. They can do that, and they take a lot of liberties, which is really, really frustrating to me. So.
Oh yeah, you told us one of the funniest stories. I remember one of the nights we were filming in LA, and I'll just be brief, but you were telling us you were on a show where you played opposite another man as police officer partners, I believe, and he was acting rather foolish in the way he was conducting himself, and you're like, look, man, we got a good thing going here, blah, 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 and he was just continued to act a fool until the show got canceled or whatever.
Yeah,
you're like, great. Yeah. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
And all he had to do was just not be a jerk, but he just could not do that. And I would imagine that kind of that self-absorption happens.
Well, I think
acting lends itself to that, I guess.
It does. I mean, a lot of it has to do, I think, with why you're in the business. If you're coming to this business to validate yourself or to prove or to get something, what I mean? Because I think we give as much as we receive. But if you're coming there for, and if you're insecure, now that can be the other side of getting good people because, when I see a good actor, there's a part of me that says, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it on. I mean, I want to play, but if I wasn't confident, maybe I might then suddenly find fault in the cameraman or those actors kind of complain about everything and it's a problem and what's with these lines, I can't say these because it can make you insecure, I guess, if you're not prepared, I mean,
totally,
so
you got to be grounded not to lose your way in Hollywood as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just this whole petri dish waiting for people to be lost in the wilderness if you're not grounded. At least, from my outside limited experience, it's like I've had friends go out to Hollywood and become disillusioned. And, it's like you just, ever since I had the pleasure to know you, Ernie, you've just struck me as a very grounded individual. Someone who just is very clear about why they're doing certain things from a organic and genuine way, rather than a superficial kind of not lacking a thoughtfulness. You were never like you've always been just very straight up and genuine and right there. I think that's why you and I have always related, and it's really interesting to hear more about your career. It's absolutely fascinating. And I was wondering, when you told me earlier on in the conversation when you were, pretty militant and wearing a beret, and I also read that Muhammad Ali you were a big fan of his. How did someone with your insight and that coming from that perspective to a degree, how have you been able to navigate Hollywood, fairly successfully? I mean, you've been in Miss Congeniality, Oz, playing that authoritative figure that you do so well.
Hey, Warden. Hello, Mike.
And I went to Donald Groves.
Groves?
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, McManus. Don't take this the wrong way,
What?
but are you out of your fucking mind? Groves is a demented sociopath without a scoosh of remorse.
Well, maybe.
He ate his parents. He killed them, carved them up, and he ate them. What the fuck do you think you can do with him?
I'm gonna teach him table manners.
Listen, the only thing a guy like that understands is punishment, hard and swift.
Come here and lick me.
Leo, you said it yourself. Our first conversation, all we do is recycle.
Hey, Ward, need to talk to you.
Later, Johnson, later.
Yeah, later.
I mean, an inmate comes in, we sit on him, send him back out, he's back with a vengeance. I mean, if we don't do something different, if we don't do something radical right now, we're never gonna break the chain.
Listen, Groves isn't going out. He's here to God drop kicks him to hell.
Do I have to call the commissioner on this one? I was given total autonomy to run Cell Block 5 my way.
Fine. Take Groves.
Thank you.
And Paul Markstrom.
Markstrom, he is a petty drug dealer, and I got enough petty drug dealers.
You want Groves, you take Markstrom.
Why?
Lord, talk to you, man.
Why?
Just give me 5 minutes.
It's my cousin.
Of course, it's hard to navigate Hollywood for a variety of reasons, but also because it's this mechanism to shape public perception of culture in such a powerful way that we're seeing right now.
Right.
We've got the Black Lives Matter movement and all of this, our world's being turned upside down right now. Like, how have you been able to navigate this? And has your view of Hollywood shifted as of late, given what we're dealing with?
Well, that's interesting. Now, okay. Now I got to go to the restroom. So,
okay, sure.
Can we take a break here?
Yes. That was hysterical. I mean, because I was bringing it with that question, multifaceted, cultural.
Yeah, this might take some time. So, can't squirm through this, but I really need to. Yeah, well, I think, I look at it now, especially with the Black Lives Matter, and I think maybe I have been over the years you question yourself. Am I too willing to accommodate? I mean, I came through at a different time. I'm from a different generation. I was, born in the 40s. And so I hear the complaints and they're justified. They're legitimate. I found ways around things. We all find ways to, make peace with things. But as I said, the way I grew up, I trust the Holy Spirit. I trust that guidance. I realize that we're not all at the same place. I also realized that a lot of the things that I felt held me back were assumptions made on my part. So, for example, when I say I want to do something, I remember being at a place where I stood at the gate waiting for somebody to come by to kind of let me in to go to the house, when I realized that the gate was never locked. I just assumed it was. And so I always felt that you take it as far as you can take it. And then, then you trust that somebody, the Holy Spirit, will send someone somehow. But you have to just trust. I was asked about, had I had the conversation with my sons, I have 4 sons, about the police situation. And I said, yeah, we've talked about it, but I don't want my sons to assume that any encounter with the police is going to be a bad experience, or that this particular policeman is going to be biased or whatever. I mean, you tend to get what you expect from situations.
Sure.
And like I said, the thing that kind of unifies us, now Hollywood is pretty much what it is. I know there are a lot of people who are Most of the people in Hollywood don't do anything. I mean, most of the money is made by people who. There was a guy who introduced me to someone. He made more money than the two of us did. I mean, it's like people find ways to hustle, and and if they can feed off you, I mean, I expect that. But at the end of the day, you got to know who you are, and you got to like who you are. I never had a problem.
That's for
with,
sure.
Yeah, so you got to. I always like me. You know what I mean? My grandmother said that she would say that the odds of any of us being born is so astronomical. I mean,
it's true. It is true.
The chance to live this life. I mean, and it's not a long
It's
life.
incredible.
I mean,
It's a miracle.
It's a short little span. I mean, no matter how I look at it, I look at the last 20
Sure.
years and I see how fast it's going. 20 years from now, I'm going to be damn near 100. So, not many guys make it that far. So you have to, I mean, let's just get real. And so I think I've always felt that what's important, and my kids are important, my family, my wife. I mean,
exactly.
So it's, a lot of promises are made. And I think people who believed in the promises wholeheartedly get disillusioned. I know a lot of people came out with high hopes and they leave very angry. When someone does something nice, or exceptional to me, I'm so thankful because I really don't expect much from anybody, and I'm usually not disappointed. You know what I mean? It's like it's okay. I'm good.
Right.
I think that from that standpoint, and I was talking to a director, a young lady who was just starting out, and she said, "What should I?" I said, Hollywood can never offer you anything more than what you already have. So don't trade you for whatever this promise is, because and I think I just always knew that. But I do feel that, I this creation that is me, I like Ernie Hudson. I mean, I've always liked me. I felt that some people, I never found anybody who I would change places with. I see some guys seem like they had it all, but I'm like, you know what? When I start looking, I'm like, I'll keep my hand, So
that's terrific. I mean, that again, you're a pretty grounded individual, which is not the case when you come across most of humanity. Actually, I mean, but I'm really also curious about how do you view like what's happening right now? Should there be more? Like right now, Netflix came out with. A whole series of Afrocentric, for lack of a better phrase, films about African American culture, things of this nature. I see that as a good thing. I would imagine you would concur. What are your thoughts on what's happening in the country right now in terms of us? I mean, it seems like we're just turning the culture upside down, or at least pulling the veil back and saying, "Hey, this is what's going on," and it's made us almost conscientious, or things that we kind of like rationalized away to a certain degree. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that things has been a certain way, and a lot of people benefited from it that way, and a lot of people don't want to see a change. A lot of people are threatened by that change, but there are a lot of people who are basically. I mean, for me, it's always been a little bit of what's in it for me. I have never done much of anything that I don't look at it and say, can I win this? Do I have a shot at this? And if I ain't got a shot, I don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? I used to play basketball with my kid, and it got to a point where he started kicking my butt every time, and I stopped playing. And he said, "Why we don't play basketball?" I'm like, "No, because I don't want to lose to you every day. I mean, what friggin' sense does that make?" So we got too many people who feel there is not a chance, and we need to, that you got a shot. That's what America was supposed to be about. But it's been so. I mean, we haven't gotten here by accident. I mean, that school I went to, I was able to sort of come out of it, but most of those kids, almost all those kids, they got lost, and did not have great lives. But it's needed. Whether we'll step up to the reckoning without going to civil war. I mean, whether we'll see there's a need, and maybe we personally might not have, a reason to say, we need to be inclusive We're all in this together. That sense of unity as Americans. Of course, now with the whole social media and the internet and all that stuff, I mean, they're playing with our minds and trying to control and all that.
Oh my gosh!
You know, I don't know how we overcome this new place we're at, but I think we have to. And the thing with African American movies and some of the stuff they're doing, these stories have not been told. They need to be told.
Yes, yes.
But the whole angst and some of the tragic stuff, we didn't survive with just the tragedy. You know what I mean? People loved and laughed and did stuff. And,
exactly. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing in Hollywood. You know, particularly minorities, have always been portrayed. African American people, Latino people, been portrayed in this very stereotypical, dumbed down, watered down, just really silly way. And, you know, now we're seeing a lot more rich characters. I mean, that you've had the benefit of being able to play, which is remarkable, you know, for anyone's career, which is excellent. You know, real human characters that we know all people to be, whether you're a minority or not, doesn't matter. Like, all people have these complex parts of them. And so, like, you know, we've seen this long progression of, you know, pushing and pushing. We've seen, you know, filmmakers like Spike Lee that have pushed the envelope, busted the doors, you know, open a little bit, but yet they're so strong. So now we'll see more of that kind of thing, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think I see people out demonstrating, and in many cases there are more whites out there than blacks. I mean, there are people demonstrating in cities that I don't even know if black people live. I mean, so we're aware of it as a nation, you know, and
yes.
And I'm very touched that whites and other groups are saying, yeah, we need to do something about this. We can't allow this to continue. Now, there are those who want to dig in and just go back to, you know, make America great again. Sounds to me like make it, you know, exclusively white again. And so I know there are those, you know, but the question is we're making a choice here. And I think we have to make a choice. Of course, when I say Black Lives Matter, and I say that it's important for America to understand that, but it's important for all America, not just white people, but also black people. I mean, you know, there are choices that I didn't make because my life matters. You know what I mean? And I see people making bad choices. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm looking at people. One of the things, if your immune system is weakened, and one of the things, if you're obese or overweight, and I'm not just saying this to black people, I'm saying to people in general. I mean, but now would be the time to be strengthening my immune system. I mean, now is the time to
get on the treadmill if you can.
It ain't time to be, you know, dining out at McDonald's. I mean, this is the time to get serious. Now, I can't say to someone you have to do that, but I'm saying you have to matter enough to yourself to say, you know, I've always, like I said, I've always liked me, but I have to say to me, hell no. You're not, you know, you better put that, no, you're not eating that. There's a part of me that says to me, nope, don't even think about it, you know. And I don't drink because I got drunk one time, beat up my brother and my uncle, and ripped the chandelier out of the ceiling, and they called the police, and I went to jail. I spent the night in jail. The only time I've ever gone to jail. I spent the night in the jail. And when it was on a Sunday night.
Getting to know you.
they put me in this jail. I was 18 or 19 somewhere, but they put me in this cell, and everybody had been arrested over the weekend for being drunk. So everybody there had been drunk and had been throwing up, and I started throwing up.
Oh, beautiful!
From the time I got there, which was 3 PM until midnight, I just dry heaved. It was just awful. The smell of the alcohol was so. The stench was so bad. I got out the next day, but man, every time I would go to drink, I smell alcohol. I get sick. So I have this weird allergy that I don't drink. But I realized that some of the stuff I've been through, if I was really, you know, had a habit now, or, you know, I mean, if I was
it'd make it 10 times worse.
It would be 1,000 times worse. I mean, so I just think that we have to care enough to say, I'm making a choice here. This is not happening. There are things happening, but I'm making a choice of how I'm reacting and responding to them. And so
Exactly.
where do you want to go with this? And until you take that responsibility for yourself, we're just never going to, and people sitting out who are doing very well saying my life is screwed up because those people are creating a problem. And as far as the police, I mean, that is tradition. I mean, all the way back to slavery, they've been assigned the role of keeping Black people in a certain position, poor people, minority people, and they've been given the luxury of no accountability, and so it has to stop. And
a qualified immunity is ridiculous.
I was asked to come and be the grand marshal of a parade in Downey, California. And I probably shouldn't say the name, but it was Downey, California. And
you're freed up now, Ernie. So
that's right. I'm gonna go driving through Downey. But they asked me to meet the police department, to meet some of the officers, and so I went to the station and met some of them, and they looked at me like, man, like and I'm like, hey guys, hi, I'm trying to be friendly. Just ice. I'm like,
really?
What is that about? Yeah, I mean, it's we have to see each other as, once again, that spirit that ties us all together. And if we can't see that, then we're lost. So when do we reach a point where we make a choice? And sometimes it's a civil war. Sometimes people have to sit in a jail and say, wow, I wish I could do it over. I hope we don't get to those places.
Yeah.
And also, I really, it's so much we have more in common. I've met people who look at me and I know they don't like me, but there's no reason not to. It's always amazed me if somebody doesn't like me. I'm like, really? How could you not like me? But it's, I don't get it. But,
hey,
I'm like, but you
great conversationalist. I'm funny and I'm thoughtful and I'm generally pretty nice. I don't drink.
No, and I'm here.
And so I don't get into fights.
Yeah, I'm here for you, man. I'm like, just hug. I mean, but you love your kids. I love my kids. You love to, what is that? What is, so, but you have to be at a place where you're willing to make that choice. And as far as religion, organized religion, I think they've done more harm in a lot of ways because they fostered this separation.
Oh, yes.
People aren't worth it. They're not, they're not saved. They're not whatever. And so,
yeah, I know it's very, very interesting. And our country is one of the only ones that really hasn't truthfully and forthrightly reckoned with its past, as opposed to like having statues of Confederate statues all over the country.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What is that? Now we're seeing it. Oh my gosh, this is all around us. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there. It's always been there. And as a Black man, I've always been aware of it. I've always kind of walked around it. I've sort of, I made allowances for my friend who, sometimes people, I just say, well, they don't understand, they don't know, but I shouldn't have to spend time doing that.
How do you balance that in terms of being patient with folks who, just don't understand or are ignorant to certain situations? I mean, I remember I met this guy from South Africa, a white guy in college who was really just made some awful racist comments. And it was so stupid and ridiculous to me that I didn't even get angry when he made these comments. I just looked at him and I really, honestly just felt really bad for him because he was just so confused about how to navigate as a human being. I was just like, whoa, man.
Yeah.
It was really startling. And I tried to just talk to him. It was strange. You'd think, I grew up in father was a civil rights activist. I grew up in, I was a minority as a white person. I had a lot of mixed friends, Black, white, whatever, Latino, Asian, didn't matter. And, I heard that. I was like, wow, man, I felt really, really bad. And it would be just so wonderful if people as a society, we acknowledged it together. And until we do that, you will always get this really nefarious and harmful manifestation of these things that aren't, it's like when things bubble up and you haven't acknowledged them.
Yeah, no, and you're right. But there's got to be a willingness, and it doesn't help when you have someone who's out there perpetuating and just stirring this stuff up and
all
thinking
the time.
his power and his success is based on him doing this. Because I don't think he
Hasn't done a
cares
thing.
one way or the other, but it just, if I can do this, I can stay in power. And I don't know, we're at a point. Are we, grown up enough to make the decision to do what we know in our heart is right? People say, well, I
hope so.
support. In fact, I was up we have a cabin up north in Minnesota, up near Brainerd. And we were up there. We're at a restaurant. They had signs all over. We support the police. And I go, I support the police too. I know we need the police.
Absolutely.
I got no problem with police, but it's bad policing. It's when you discriminate. That's the problem I have. Just, treat everybody fairly, at least, but when you go into it, I've had police stop me and they walk up to me and I know they got an attitude. I see the guy got his hand on his gun. I mean, it's like, that's not policing. That's something else. And you have these people who are not from the neighborhoods or not from the people that they're supposedly serving, and you got a problem. So we have to make the decision that this is something that we as a nation want, if we're going to be a nation, because otherwise it's just certain people running it and everybody else run for your life. And
pretty much. And let's have I appreciate this conversation because it's real, it's genuine, it's I don't have any our society with the media and the polarization and the guy who's sitting in the White House, it's constantly this polarization of either you're this way or you're that way. No, I'm not against. I've met several police officers that I thought were great people and wonderful people in Chicago when I'd close up this nightclub that I was running. They'd protect me. And, that's what they were doing.
Right.
And, but we're talking about a bigger conversation, the training, the culture, the things why is this continuing to happen in this particular way? There's something to look at. So let's really look at that without vilifying individual people. I was also wondering, though, on this topic, though, Ernie, it just made me think of looking back on your whole career and the ups and downs and the winding road, and particularly with respect to being a black man in this country and what's happening now. If you met a young actor that you saw, had some skill and some promise, they were just coming up, and they said, "What advice can you give me?" What would you say?
Well, I think that, an
African-American actor, that is.
Well, at a certain point, like I said, we do the whole, the categories, the racial categories, the age, the sex, and all that stuff. And I think the only thing that has been the saving grace for me comes from my grandmother, which is you got to see past that. You got to see, you got to see a spirit, and you got to trust that spirit will guide you. I think there's an inner guide that knows what we need to do, and we know what we need to do, but we have the fear of doing it. That's the problem. We look around and we kind of go, something says. It was a story my grandmother used to tell me about when the children of Israel were running from Pharaoh, and they got to the Red Sea, and Pharaoh was coming behind, and they had to get across, and so Moses ordered them. There's two versions of that story in the Bible. But in one, he tells them to get into the water, and they get into the water and the seas part. But that's the moment where they got to be willing to get into the water without knowing for sure what's going to happen. There's no guarantee. You got to be willing to step out there and put it on the line. But that's trusting spirit. But I think if you can't fight. I don't believe in fighting necessarily against anything. I believe in fighting very hard for something. You know what I mean? The thing that I don't want, I just soon not focus on. I just soon not spend a lot of time dealing with that. That's not going to, but the thing that I do care about, that's where my energy is, where my focus is. I know how I'm going to vote in this election. I know the people who I like and I'm going to support financially, otherwise. But I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking, it's not about the fight. And when I look at TV, the thing that frustrates me so much in movies and TV now is everything is a war.
It's all
what
about
I hate
that.
about these Marvel movies. It's like there's always a war against and they're battling and they're kicking and they're shooting and they're So so I'm not about. It's about how do we support what we believe needs to be done, and so anyway, that's you got to want something better, and not everybody feels the same way.
Yeah, I mean, would you do you have any aspirations to direct, by the way?
No, I don't have any aspirations.
No?
I know. You know what? I think if a project came along that I really was passionate about, but nah, man.
If it was something that really spoke to you.
If something really spoke to me, yeah, maybe, but not really. I mean, I'm in this life, this go round. I'm just trying to enjoy it, man. I'm trying to enjoy the moment, and work when it's work. But I'm not looking for a job. I mean, I'm saying I'd love to work, but I'm not.
Sure.
Those years of auditioning and rejection. No, I ain't doing that anymore. I mean, if you want me, you know where to find me. And I'm good, man. I'm good, So I got Ghostbusters, so I can, put on my Ghostbuster outfit in the old folks' home.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you were in Ghostbusters. Right. I remember.
Yeah, so I'm good.
I forgot to ask you about that. Well, before I leave this, is there any specific type of role that you were like, wow, I'd really like to do that, or anything along those lines, or a role that, or some type of story that you've been thinking of that you're just like, man, that would really speak to me, or you haven't really figured it out, but you'll know when you see it?
No, I had a play that we were trying to do, and I was working with someone who we parted ways because we had a whole different idea. The guy I was working with, he was Italian, but he did what I find a lot of, and I hate to keep talking about black and white and all that, but this was Jack Johnson at the end of his life, and we wrote a play. It was a one-man show. We were doing it, but in the middle of it, he really wanted to see the black character beat up and worn out and on drugs and all the above. And I wanted to focus on other things, and certainly the way he, lived his life right up to the very end was pretty dynamic. But so we just had these two, and so once we kind of split up, I haven't gone back to it, but I still think about that sometime. I did him when in his youth. Be interesting to see what at the end of that life. But honestly, there's nothing now that that I'm really jumping up and down to do. If it comes along, I did. But if I work, I want to work where I'm really involved in the story. I don't want to. Sometimes people say, "Hey, but I got this thing I want you to do, and we only need you for one day," and it's just. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? I want to work. I don't want to just be in something because, you think I have a name and I can help you sell.
Sure.
I got a line in it, and then I got my name above title. It doesn't do anything for anybody. So I love good stories.
Yeah, you love the craft of it. I mean, I could tell.
But I think those things will come. That's why I think and a young actor coming to me, it's like trust the universe. It is aware of you. It's personal. And it knows, and it'll guide you, but you almost have to quiet yourself. When you panic, you're screaming inside because you're so desperate and so afraid. You got to sort of quiet those voices to be able to hear it. It's hard not to be afraid, but I've always trusted, and I have a lot of friends who don't. They go, I got to do something, and I'm gonna. And sometimes you just do what you need to do and prepare. Just be prepared. Yeah. But when it comes, you're there, because if it comes and you're not, I remember, I don't get high anymore. I ain't got no problem with anybody getting high smoking weed, but I remember back in the day I smoked a joint. I don't normally do that, but I did it in the middle of the day, and then I got a call for this really important audition. And I went in there, man, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was so, and then I started apologizing for being high.
You're lit.
I'm like, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. I'm like, no, No, you gotta do the work.
Oh, for sure.
And trust
sure.
that, and the rest will come.
I was wondering, before I just didn't want to forget to ask you about, the role, not your finest hour, but you did a great job. But, most people know your face, or a lot of people first were introduced to you through Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And I mean, what impact did that have on your life and career? Did that take it up a notch, how like most people would perceive it, or how did that go down?
Well, I've been working steady and climbing in my mind. I did a movie called Space Hunter that Ivan Reitman worked on.
Yeah, with Molly Ringwald.
And then we got Ghostbusters, and I expected that would be the launching of my career, and it was kind of the opposite. It didn't destroy my career. I mean, I was still working, but after Ghostbusters came out, I really couldn't get a job in film for pretty close to 3 years. And but I thought, okay, how do I make a living doing what I do? I did some commercials, I did some print work, I did a lot of TV shows, and then finally Weeds came along with Nick Nolte, and that was the first film that I did. And once I did Weeds, I did 8 films back to back.
Really?
And then we did the second Ghostbusters, and the same thing happened. I couldn't get arrested. I don't know what that is. It was the opposite of what I thought would happen. A lot of it had to do with bad management. A lot of it had to do with, I don't know. But,
no kidding.
So it wasn't. Now, Ghostbusters probably had more impact in my life in the later years. After 10 years, 15, 20 years, Ghostbusters was still around. People were talking about it, and people connected to the character and like the character. Even now, 37, however many years, people still, really relate and connect to that movie. And it's nice to have that in my filmography. It's nice to have something that people really, they have stories, I've seen grandfathers and grandparents watch with their great grandkids, and they all find something to laugh about. So now I've grown to appreciate it, but for the longest time, I mean, I think it probably cost me more jobs than I got from it.
That's so surprising. I thought for sure you would have said the opposite. And you know what I also found out, Ernie, is that, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the script was redone a lot of times, and then the script that you thought you were getting ready to shoot was different than the one you shot, and you found out about this like the day before. You got a new script, and then a lot of your characters' background had been cut out of the script, and you were going to enter into the movie a lot later than originally planned. Is that true?
Yeah. That even though I talked to Ivan Reitman, who I really like, and I've grown to appreciate him a lot more.
Is he the director?
He's a director-producer, and Ivan says he doesn't remember that. So, we're both old men now, and maybe I'm like, one of us is crazy here. I don't know, but what I remember is. But Ivan said, no, it was never another, so I'm like, okay, whatever.
But wait, did you try to make the case the day of filming and say, hey, but you changed this at all?
Yeah.
Did you try to do that?
I tried to, and which I think kind of freaked him out. But I think sometimes things happen where you really are put in a place where you think you can use old tactics. Like I said, I used to like to fight, but you can't beat people up. You can't go there, so you got to find another way to resolve this. And so you got to be open. Harold Ramis, I always give Harold credit because Harold was the voice of reason. He kind of talked me through a lot of stuff, and it was Ghostbusters to me was a real learning experience. In so many ways, both during the movie and after the movie, and I had to just grow up and come to terms because all the while I was a single dad, and I had to take care of my kids, and I'm also setting an example for them how I deal with this, how I, get through this. I mean, they're watching, so it was a challenge, and the movie came out, and the character wasn't included in the promotion of the movie. I mean, people see the character as part of the Ghostbusters, but I wasn't on the poster. It was
right.
In fact, I saw you in Chicago at one of the showings of the 30th year. You had your kids there. Do you
yeah,
remember
we
that?
ran into each other at some hotel, like outside,
it
and I
was-
was like, "Hey,
it was-
man."
Yeah, no, it was at the theater. You guys came to the theater, and I think I got some popcorn for you kids or something. Don't you remember that? It was at this theater where they.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a different. Yes.
okay.
We came out to the west suburbs of Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, and it was at that really interesting, ornate, unique theater. Yes, I remember. That was beautiful. We met you. You got to meet my kids, my sister-in-law, my wife. And
So it was
that
great.
was wonderful.
Well,
it was really cool.
Well, the theater owner invited me to come to basically introduce the movie and to be a part of this, showing of Ghostbusters, because it's 30
Yeah.
years. I mean, so 30 years later. So I went to Chicago, and I'm excited about it. I go to the theater, and they got the poster up, and it's the poster with the three guys. And I know they have
Oh my
artwork
God.
with the four of us, but I'm like, really? I mean, really? 30 years later, you can't find something that, and yet, so it's always that.
That's
little
amazing.
stuff, but
Yeah. Oh
it's what
God.
it is. And I think part of, you have to make peace with what is. You know what I
Right,
mean?
exactly.
Where I go with this will determine what happens next. So
Yeah.
So that's
sure.
part of growing up and learning, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But did it make you more well known in the public arena? I mean, it was interesting watching you just in the limited time that I was with you during the filming of The Man in the Silo, like just watching you deal with celebrity to whatever degree we caught it when you were like, I remember because my mother, before she passed, talked with you in the train station. I think you had a conversation, and it was in the morning or something, and before we did the scenes on the train, and then it was just you and her, and within like 5-10 minutes, people started to buzz about you or what have you. And how do you deal with just having your face that well known? How has that affected you or not?
Well, I always felt, you can't buy. It doesn't make my day, and it doesn't ruin my day. It just is what it is.
Okay.
It's a part of what
Right.
it is, and people are. I remember when I first went to L.A., my brother took me to meet this guy named Stu Gilliam. He had done a role on Sanford and Son, little part, but he's an actor. And since my brother knew I wanted to be an actor, he took me over to Stu's. Stu had a shoe store. And we were talking to Stu when a limousine pulled up, and this guy got out of the limousine, and he must have been somebody important because, I mean, he came into the store, just a lot of swagger, and I thought he was somebody important. So I went over and I said, "Hey, hi, my name is Ernie Hudson. I'm an actor." He said, "Man, get the hell away from me!" And he pushed me, and it was really awkward and embarrassing. And my brother, I think I wasn't so much, it didn't bother me as much as I knew my brother saw it. And my brother was kind of embarrassed, and it was just one of those really awkward moments. And I felt so bad about it. But what I felt then, and I feel now, is I would never, ever have someone feel that way about meeting me. So it's important to me that you don't take away someone's, I don't know, sense of, well-being because you're impatient. I was with an actor, I won't mention his name. We were at a SAG meeting, and there was a young lady who saw the both of us, and she was so excited and went on. We were two of her favorite actors, and she asked if she could take a photo, and he grabbed my arm, and said, "Come on, man, let's go." And we just walked past her, and and she stood there with this look on her face. And I went with him, and I that's been 10 years ago, and it still bothers me.
Really?
So you want to be respectful. On the other hand,
Right.
people will just take over your life. I mean,
Oh, exactly. Boundaries are important.
but I just really want. I don't want to. Yeah, I'm just aware of it's. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but it seems to mean a lot to other people. So whatever, I always said,
I got that. I remember when my kids were with you, you were just unbelievably gracious, and they were just thrilled.
Well, you got
and
great
they were
kids.
having. Oh,
I don't do that to the awful kids. No. No, I think I always say one of the most fun things about being an actor is I can be walking down the street and I can see someone and you can just feel their energy, man. They're down.
Yeah.
It's like you just see that little cloud over their head and it's just and they'll look up and they'll see you. And suddenly they'll brighten. Oh my God! And they go and they say, "Hey man, my mom, she likes you, man. Can I get a photo?" And you have this moment, and then it brings whatever. And if you can do that for no money, it's like, yeah, why not? It's all good.
It's amazing. I think great actors are the best empaths. You're just aware of where other people are. You can pick up. Great actors seem to be able to pick up on energy around them. They're some of the most aware people. I think also comedians are extremely astute. Yeah. Really great comedians oftentimes actually can transition and be really great dramatic actors just because they're just so astute and aware and present.
Right.
And so like when you're present with kids, kids, they're enriching, they're enlivening, they're so inspiring because they're in the moment. They're just living right there. They're like, oh, that's Ghostbusters. What's up?
Yeah.
They're excited. They don't care about how it looks. And that's so beautiful and wonderful and refreshing to be around. So it's like, it doesn't surprise me that you say that because that's kind of how I've always viewed you. You seem to be real present with people just kind of naturally. And that a lot of our culture is not that way.
Well, it's going to be even harder now.
Very present.
Well, with this pandemic and this 6 foot apart, and if we go through a year of this, I honestly I don't know how we get past this.
How are you coping? Like, what structures to cope to you stay mentally and physically healthy? Just in general, like how do you navigate that? If you don't mind me asking.
Well, it's been a wonderful time for me and my wife to really kind of come together and kind of work through some of our stuff. Not just work through, but just to really spend time together because I travel so much. And so that's been really good. And just try to work out a little bit and try to, like I said, just stay healthy and try to use this time as just kind of a reboot and just kind of reset some things and think about, what's important, what's not, so I'm just trying to use the time well and really thankful that I'm in a position where I don't have to worry. I'm thinking if I was in a situation where I had to worry about the rent or some basic stuff, that would be very hard. And I feel for a lot of people who are having a hard time,
and a lot of people.
And I'm, very fortunate to have a job to go back to. They've, it's been an interesting time, but it breaks my heart to see some of the stuff that's going on in the country. And I'm hoping that we'll get past this,
Yeah. Oh, amen. I pray every day for that. One of the things that's keeping me sane is playing music.
Yeah, no, that.
But I don't want to play it unless my bandmates are here and we have to play outside with masks on, 6 feet apart. Yeah. But it's still incredible. It's still like an incredibly joyous experience.
Yeah.
But now the weather's getting colder.
Yeah.
So that's going to be less frequent, and we can't be indoors with one another because and it's just like, dang, I got to find that outlet. I try to keep my kids, active or what have you, like do some artwork.
Right.
Try to get off your phone. There are things but it's interesting how, like you were saying with your wife, you're spending time together. There's a certain connection that is happening with people in a lot of situations where they're actually bonding in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have. That's actually enriching, but it's not always easy to do if you're in a tough situation and you're stressed out and filled with anxiety. But, even then, like people have to come together and hopefully there's a lot more going on than I might think there is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, we have to use this time well. Otherwise, I think it would just drive you a little bit nuts. And I'm not at a point where I really need to go and party and connect in that way because I know it's got to be very frustrating for young people who really are at a
Yes.
stage in life when they want to get together and you want to hear the music and you want to, it's not just the music, but it's being in that environment, you know what I mean? It's the scene and all that's on hold. And I don't even know what dating is like for, you know.
Oh, I know.
people.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just meeting with one of my former interns who's, is 20, 21. And I didn't even ask him about it.
Yeah.
Like, are you dating? How you date? Because that's just kind of a no-go.
Yeah.
By the way, Ernie, I just wanted to ask you another question. I have more questions, but I know we've gone along, and I'm so grateful for your time. I just wanted to ask you one that might be interesting is, can you remember, like, any crazy ass time on a set or interesting moment or moments that, no one would really know about that you've experienced, like on any production, like something that was just like, man, that was nuts, or that was kind of crazy, or that was remarkable, or like, wow, that was so interesting. I'm so glad I was there for that, or part of that.
Yeah.
Something that happened, whether it was during a take or not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, I think there's always so much,
Is there anything any one experience that may come to mind?
Well, we talked about the one actor that I was working with who just sort of lost control and ended up in a fight with the first AD, and it turned into a fist fight, and it was so odd seeing these grown men actually fighting.
Was this the police officer show?
Yeah. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and I thought, wow, that seems so.
Fight.
Yeah, I mean, the yelling you get, people yell and do. Even that's a little kind of, we grown. There's certain things as grown men, we just don't do that. You might threaten a call.
Why?
I know. And I
don't get that.
I don't know. And I was on a set recently, one of the shows I do, and I think the DP was having a hard, I don't know, people said, I'm not sure, but he just, the first AD, he just really went off and really was abusive. The director, who was a young lady, and it was one of her first directing gigs, and she asked me, should I say something? I'm like, no, this is very unusual. This doesn't normally happen. One of the things I was doing a show. We were shooting in Arkansas actually, and we had an actor who was the lead in it, and he never knew his lines, and it would just slow everything down, and it was just painful. And so I thought, well, maybe I could help him, And so I said, listen, man, I know
he was the lead and just didn't know his lines.
He didn't know his lines. He just didn't.
Just every time that he's looking at, boom.
Yeah, it just kind
blank.
of, I was like, he was.
You're the lead, man.
Yeah, and it was just slowing everything. It was taking forever. And, oh, man, this is. So I said, is there something we can do? I can help. I mean, and he says, I said, you don't. He says, no, what's wrong? I said, you don't seem to know your lines. He said, no, I don't look at it until we get here on the set. And I said, what do you mean? He says, no, I'd rather be in the moment. And I'm like, your moment is, I'm on the set for 14 hours because you want to have a moment. I mean, really, it helps all of us. But
wow,
that's the way he said.
That's incredible.
I do it, and he works. So but it's been so many people, just weird stuff, man. That yeah.
Well, I remember when I was called to set in The Man in the Cellar, and you were like, it was in, you were Marcus Wells' character was, in the bedroom, and he was like going over his, he was living there, and he was pretty distraught. And, it should have looked like, half-eaten meals on the counter or whatever, and some photos scattered about, and you just like reminiscing and kind of, about to go into your tailspin. And I got on the walkie-talkie. They're like, yeah, you need to come to set. Ernie's not happy with the set design. I was like, what? Really? I gotta come to set. Okay, so I came to set, and then I looked at it. I was like, oh my god, and like you were like, no, because there was like it was just not done right.
Yeah.
And there was like a paper plate with some ketchup on it, and we're like, what the? You were saying like, what is that? What is that? And the whole camera crew was cracking up. I started to crack up because I was always tired as hell from working so damn hard on that film, and I was just like, I laughed my heart, and then I was like, okay, we're gonna fix it, and then we called another art director and like immediately got it handled, and he worked the rest of the shoot. But I remember that it's just like, what is going on here? Is anybody going to take care of this? I got to come. I got enough to do.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's insane stuff because it's so intense. The people are thrown together and it's a short period of time and everybody needs to do their stuff. And people have attitudes and people are, high and working and and it's just, it can be, anything happens, and it does happen, but I always kind of, that's why I don't direct, because when people things fall apart, it's on me to resolve. And as an actor, I'm just like, you know what, I'll just be over here. You guys work that out. She's crying, and I don't know what that's about, but she won't leave her dressing room, so you go talk to her. I don't have to deal with that. So and I've seen just crazy stuff, but I'm like, that's not in my, I'm here for you if I can help, but otherwise, that's boundaries. Why I got to make sure that I'm prepared, because I never want things to be held up or slowed down, because of what I do. But you try to be patient, try to be understanding. I don't understand a lot of it, but hey, this is where we are.
Well, your character in was it Grace and Frankie? With
Lily Tomlin,
Jane Fonda, and Lily Tomlin. God, are they funny?
Yeah, they're.
Oh my gosh, they're raw.
Yeah.
And I mean, are you having a good time working with them?
Well, I'm a fan of both of theirs, and they have been for a long time. When I started out, Jane Fonda was a big star. And they're so amazing and wonderful people. And so easy to get along with, and I just, so I'm just honored to be on the show. But I like to think, once again, that ego, I bring something to the show as well in my mind.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
But I love seeing them work. I love being on that set and being around them. And because I think when you're the leads in the show, you carry the show. And if you behave badly or you're not showing up or you're causing havoc, then other people will follow that. And but when you show up on time, other people will normally fall in line. So and I got a kick out of nowhere. You're Lily Tomlin is your love interest, and then all of a sudden you're firing up a joint. And I'm just like, I laughed hard. My kids are like, "What's so funny, Daddy?" I was just like, "I'll explain to you later." Yeah,
like in a few years.
So where did you go to school?
Humboldt State University.
Oh, Cornhuskers.
Lumberjacks.
What the fuck am I doing?
Are you all right?
No, Grace had this stupid idea that you were flirting with me, so I tried to flirt back. You couldn't tell.
I thought you were having a stroke.
I'm terrible at this.
I've got an idea.
Damn, that's some good Chiba.
I cross-pollinated a super strain of White Widow and some Hindu Kush. I call it... God damn. I'm totally blanking. Can't remember what I call it.
just funny to see you, because that just doesn't, I never would have thought I would ever see that in real life, but I saw it on screen, which was pretty funny.
No.
And your rings were like, you were rocking the jewelry.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh,
yeah. I
nice.
love that. I
was
love that
good.
character. It was, what I like about him, because he's just so much being, I'm not sure what the term, that whole black African, none of that stuff. It bothers me because it feels like some subcategory, I'm not just American somehow, but anyway, we'll just go. So as an African American actor, so many of the roles that I'm offered, it's some extreme. Some guys are criminal, even though I don't get those too much these days, thankfully.
Right.
Or he's, it's never just a guy. You know what I mean? Rarely just a family. Rarely just, loving, caring. It's always something extreme. But on that show, this guy is just a guy. He's been successful, and he likes this woman because he likes her, not because of and that's kind of where you are at a certain point in life. And I like that about the show, and I don't have to do some dumb stuff. I like
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so genuine and real. It's almost a little too real. It's like, whoa, they're talking about the intimacies of dealing with sex at a certain age. I'm like, okay, all right, yeah. But it's a wonderful production. And, the one I forgot to ask you about, which I don't want to forget, which I remember when after you agreed to do The Man in the Silo, I was watching films. You were in The Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio. We had some really powerful moments with him, as your character helps him through his drug addiction.
Where is it?
What?
You know what the fuck I'm talking about, Reggie. Where is it?
You mean this?
Give it to me. I'll cut your fucking throat, Reggie. Give it to me, all right? Just give it to me.
I'm gonna make you an incredible offer. I'm gonna save your life twice in one day. You understand me?
You should have left me in the fucking snow, man. Oh, Reggie.
It's okay.
Why are you doing this?
Because once upon a time somebody helped me, and I'll always pay what I owe.
And also with in Hand That Rocks the Cradle as Solomon, did you observe people that have a mental handicap of some sort? Because it was incredible how you portrayed that character.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the shows that I'm really most proud of, because
really,
I felt that when I read the script, they were looking for Irish guy with freckles and 5'7". It was not anything that looked like me, and so I wanted to get in, and I couldn't get a meeting, and then they started. At that point, they were seeing people who were mentally disabled. They were interviewing them because they were hoping to get someone who really had a problem to do the role, and then that didn't work out. Because they felt like we really need an actor, and then they kind of opened it up. So I finally got an audition and was able to get in. And Curtis Hanson, who recently died, but Curtis really liked what I did, and but the studio was not wanting to cast somebody black in that role, because at that time it took place in the South, and they felt that they were making some, inappropriate comment about black men or something. But then after the script got placed in Portland, Oregon, then it changed, or at least they were more open to. And so I had to go back again, and I had to really convince them that, number one, being a man physically, big, could convince the audience that I wouldn't retaliate. Like, for example, when she slaps me or when we're in that situation, because
I just watched that the other day.
That why wouldn't you just take her, and because that's not what the guy does. I mean, it's and
exactly.
But they couldn't quite. They said, "Well, would that be believable?" And of course, there was never a question in my mind. So it was interesting. They sent me. Curtis sent me the tape of their auditions for me when to try and go back when I had to go back and meet the studio again, and it was all the auditions of the people who were mentally disabled. And you saw one after another. They kind of went in, and then they had this one guy, the last one on the tape.
Interesting.
He went in, and he was brilliant.
Oh.
It was wonderful. And then you could hear they got excited. Hear the buzz in the back, got excited, and they were all, yeah, that's wonderful. He said, "That's so wonderful, Jerry. Could you stand up and do it?" And he said, "No."
Can you stand up and do it?
In other words, he was sitting down, he was doing line, but he just wanted him to just stand up and do what he did. They said, "No, just do what you just did, just stand." And he said, "No." So
because he can't take direction.
Well, it's
kind
like
of critical.
I got it down like this, and now I'm not no. And then the tape suddenly went black, and that was the end of
That's interesting.
But when I got the role, I knew that it just had to be honest. That's all. So I went to a number of places that deal with mentally disabled people, and met some of the guys, and met a guy who was very similar to the character. And then you take your own experience of. To me, they used to say retarded, but you're locked at a certain age, maybe 6 years old, and you behave like a typical 6-year-old, except you're 46. And so, but it was kind of interesting developing, doing the homework and research for that character. But I like Solomon.
Yeah,
and Solomon was the best part of me. The best of who I can be.
Solomon! I want to show you my sculpture.
Okay. Is that the head or is that the foot?
No, that's part of the fur.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. That's a piece of art.
I knew you'd see it.
Yeah, I mean, he was a very honorable person, very decent, and which is, not a light thing to say in this modern day society. I mean, just to be a decent human being is quite an achievement.
Yeah, I think, to see the best in people.
Well, that's that. And what was the actor's name? The woman who?
Oh, Rebecca De Mornay. Rebecca, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, she was intense. She was
really intense.
Yeah,
I was like, dang, get her back, Ernie.
Yeah.
She's wicked.
Yeah, she was, and she's, I think of her as a friend. I haven't seen her in a long time, but she's a wonderful actress. But man, when we got ready to do that scene where she slaps me, she wasn't supposed to slap me in the scene.
Oh,
but
really?
I could see in her eyes she had something up, and she came and she just got up in my face.
So that was a real slap.
Yeah, that was a real slap. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
And
you looked very surprised.
Yeah, I was. Well, I just knew that she was riding that moment, and she was, I just felt something's going to come out of her.
Are you a retard?
No.
Did you like looking at me? Did you like looking at me? Don't fuck with me, retard. My version of the story will be better than yours.
I won't let you hurt them. They're my friends. I won't let you hurt them.
And so where do you go with that?
Yeah, you reacted.
Yeah.
as if it was real, for sure.
Yeah,
and that's what makes it real.
Yeah, she was. I love work. Like I said, working with good people, and she's really very good at what she does.
Yeah, Ernie, boy, this has been incredible. Such an honor and a pleasure to talk with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we go?
No, I just really love and appreciate you, man. We've known each other for a number of years.
You.
I really,
Likewise.
just have so much respect for you and your beautiful family, and it's nice to be able to, to just have a conversation with someone during this pandemic. I'm talking so much because I have nobody to talk to, so you're it. My wife is tired of what I have to say, so I'm glad to talk to you.
Right there with you, brother. And right back at you. I mean, it's been wonderful to get. I just remember on the set of The Man in the Silo, every time we chatted for more than a minute or two, it was never more than 3 or 4 though, because I was busy, I was hustling, and I'd be like, I want to talk to you some more, but I gotta go again. But it was, it's been wonderful to connect. Thank you so much for your time, and until the next go around, hopefully. By the way, you're going back for the family visit. You're going back out to LA.
Yeah, I'm going back out to LA. They're doing trying a situation where we're going to be quarantined in a house.
Okay.
And they're trying to create a bubble where everybody working on the show will be within that bubble to keep it safe. So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
I've never done that. I feel like I'm going to camp. So it should be fun.
Well, by the way, Phil Donlin and Christopher Ellis both send their regards. And hello and lots of love. And, maybe I'll just road trip out to L.A. and get Phil and come to the set. Just crash the set. Yeah. But we can't because you're in the bubble.
In the bubble, yeah.
Now you just we'll have to come with our COVID test like, hey, we're clean. Can we come in and just say hello to Ernie? Hey, man, much love. Thank you so much, Ernie.
Pleasure. Thank you. Best to the family. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the show. If you're a fan of Ernie Hudson, make sure to check out his riveting performance in The Man in the Silo, available on Amazon Prime Video. Columnist Rick Kogan of the Chicago Tribune wrote, "It is a love story, ghost story, and psychological thriller, all playing out under the shadow of racial tension and backed by Bernard Herrmann's haunting score for Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo." And if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe, leave us a rating and review so more people can hear about us, and share about Rhythm of Life on social media, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Ordower.
This has been a Rhythm and Light production.